Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto reincarnated Hashirama and Madara demand their knowledge part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Itachi was sitting beside Sasuke as usual. He was always hovering over his little brother's shoulder, a silent, unseen guardian. Well, mostly unseen. It wasn't that I saw ghosts. They weren't ghosts. Some of the people I saw were still alive. But, well, I didn't know how else to describe them. Only I could see them. Only I could hear them. Well, at least I never lacked for company. Naruto. Snapped my teacher. I jerked. Pay attention. I flashed a grin and saluted. Aye, sir. Next to me, Madara scoffed. Imbecile. Beezer, I thought cheerfully. School was out, for now. I was sitting on a bench, chewing on the sandwich I'd packed. I would have had ramen, but Hashirama would have scolded me. Did you give any thought to my suggestion? Volunteered the first Hokage. You mean that I have a slight case of AD? Not really. I got sidetracked. What? Got distracted by a squirrel again? Madara scoffed. No, I said indignantly. It was a ladybug. The old Uchiha snorted. Hashirama smiled down at me and patted my head. I couldn't feel it. I was getting odd looks. I didn't mind. Most people had already gotten used to my crazy. The exams are tomorrow, Hashirama commented. Are you going to be alright? I flashed him a grin. Sure. I'll be fine. You fail. Beside me, Hashirama winced. Oh, dear. Perhaps we should have gotten started on the bunchin sooner. Yes, he might have passed had we started him, 5 years ago. Madara had his arms crossed over his chest, sneering. Hashirama frowned fiercely at him. Madara. They'd been walking beside me, arguing as I trudged away, and we were already outside. I waved a hand as I slid onto the swing, held up by a tree. It's fine. I should have tried harder. You did your best, Naruto, protested the first Hokage. I just shook my head. HMPH. Don't beat yourself up about this, child, Madara said gruffly. I gave him a grin. What's this? Uchiha Madara, getting soft in his old age. He scowled. Hashirama laughed. Sometimes they went off to who knows where. I was alone when one of my teachers sat down beside me. Mizuki smiled gently down at me. Iruka doesn't mean to be harsh, he said softly. I nodded. I know. I didn't blame him. How could I, when he took me out for ramen sometimes? He was always the nicest of my teachers. Mizuki went on to tell me about his secret exam. I thought about it and shrugged. It would be a trick or it would be real. Either way, I might as well chance it. It was a trick, of course. Hashirama and Madara were with me when I found out. The surprise was when Iruka-sensei defended me. I, of course, couldn't run when he'd gotten hurt getting in the way of a large shuriken for my sake. My ghosts taught me better than that. Naruto. Iruka-sensei asked as I stepped in front of him. I won't let you hurt him anymore, I growled at the gloating Mizuki. Oh? And what can you do? He asked scathingly. You can't even make a bunchin properly. I'll show you. I made hundreds of shadow clones and ninja centerfold. Mizuki gaped. Hashirama clapped a hand over his face. I didn't even know ghosts could get nosebleeds. Madara was also gawking. Impassively, of course. Too bad I didn't have a camera. He probably wouldn't even have shown up on film, anyway. Oh, well. I would just have to savor the memory instead. I punched Mizuki out. All in all, it was a good day. I got to beat up one of my teachers and Iruka gave me his leaf headband. Plus, I gave the first Hokage a nosebleed and made the old Uchiha look something other than contemptuously dignified. So, yes. A very good day indeed. The next day, I let my elbows rest on my desk, chin settled on my arms. I was very aware of the hit I ate on my forehead. Naruto, said another student, what are you doing here? Class today is only for the students who didn't fail. I flashed him a grin. Yes. And what do you conclude from that? Madara looked contemptuous. Idiot. They are but children, Madara, Hashirama reminded him. I was not that stupid at his age, he said scornfully. I kept the doubt from my face. He seemed to sense it anyway because he turned to scowl at me. Excuse me, came a feminine voice. May I pass? I looked up to see Haruno Sakura. She was very cute with long pink hair and nice blue eyes. Well, they were nice when they weren't directed at me, as they were now. Move, Naruto, she snapped. I want to sit next to Sasuke. I stared at her for a moment, then scooted closer to the boy in question. Boss, there's a dame here asking to see you, I muttered to him. You want I should run interference? He raised a black eyebrow at me, but I could tell he was amused. Next to him, Itachi was smothering a smile. This time, Shisui was also there, and he laughed outright. Whatever, dope, Sasuke muttered, lips twitching. I smiled widely at him and stayed where I was. Sakura huffed and sat down beside me because there wasn't room on Sasuke's other side. It was then that Iruka-sensei came in and told us our selective teams. Madara had his arms crossed over his chest, as usual, his expression one of indifference, but Hashirama looked attentive as Iruka-sensei read out the cell of Team 7. Sakura groaned when she heard my name and cheered when she heard hers and Sasuke's. "You just had to be on the same team as that noisy wench," Madara muttered. "Madara?" Hashirama protested. "Please." He sneered. "Don't tell me you don't wish she'd shut up sometimes." "Wow," Shisui whispered to Itachi, "Grandpa's scary." He let out an eep and disappeared when Madara turned his fiercely emotionless scowl on him. I chuckled. "What's so funny, dope?" Sasuke asked. "The ghosts are fighting," I explained. As I'd already been confronted about this, loudly and publicly, he just grunted. "Oh, please, Naruto," Sakura said loudly. "We both know that's just your imagination. You probably just do it for attention." "I'm not sure I really want more attention," I muttered, thinking of the prejudice of the villagers. Madara twitched slightly. Hashirama placed a protective hand on my head. "HN." Sasuke didn't know the reason for the village's hatred, and even if he did, I didn't think he'd share in it. Itachi knew this, and though he looked impassive, I could tell he approved. Iruka-sensei concluded his talk, saying that they would be introduced to their senior ninjutsu instructors that afternoon. "Finally," grumbled Madara. I ignored him as he complained about everything. We left to go eat our lunches. To my surprise, Itachi drifted over as I was getting my bento box. I watched him with interest. "You think I should eat with Sasuke?" I guessed. He smiled, a slight quirk of the lips, and nodded. I shrugged. "Sure." He inclined his head and left to wait with his Itaudo. I grabbed my bento and went to find my lunch buddy. I found him leaning against a window on the upper floor. I smiled cheerfully at him and sat cross-legged on the floor. He raised an eyebrow at me, but didn't object. I chatted to him about just about anything while we ate. He stayed silent. I didn't mind. He said enough with just a slight movement. It was a good thing I was fluent in Ichiha. It was time for us to meet our teacher. Or rather, it was past time. Madara was irritably drumming his fingers on a desk, a tum-tum-tum sound that only I and the other ghosts could hear. "He is late," the old Uchiha snapped. He pointed a finger at me. "Child, you had best prank him and make it good." I blinked at him and stood up to place an eraser in the door. "That's not good enough." "Bitch, bitch, bitch," Shisui said cheerfully. Madara growled at him and started forward. Hashirama grabbed and held onto him, sighing. Shisui hid behind Itachi. "That won't work," Sakura said, frowning at me. "He's an experienced jounin. There's no way he'll be caught in something as simple as that." So I said slowly, "You want me to make the prank more complex?" "Yes, I mean, no." "Erg. Hells, yeah," Shisui said immediately. Sasuke's lips were turned up slightly. Unfortunately, I didn't get the chance to do anything else, as at that moment, our teacher walked through the door. The eraser plunked onto his spiky silver head. He slowly looked at us. Beside him, a black-haired man was hunched over slightly as he laughed hard and long. A brown-haired woman with purple markings on her cheeks, a bit like I'd seen on the Inuzukas, was also laughing. It was a very pleasant sound. "I'm sorry, sensei," Sakura groveled. I tried to stop him, but Naruto. "May I kill her?" Madara wondered aloud. "May I silence her forever?" Hashirama didn't bother protesting, instead saying mildly, "Of course. Just as soon as you become corporeal." "Damn," he muttered. My first impression, the silver-haired teacher smiled. "I hate you." I wasn't listening. My attention was distracted by a pale green lizard scurrying across the floor. "Naruto." Hashirama nudged me gently. I snapped to attention. "Huh? What? What was it?" "Your teacher was telling you that he hated you all," Madara enlightened me. I blinked at silver hair over there. "Oh. All of us?" "All of you," Silver assured me. "Huh. That's a first. Usually they just hated me." Sasuke shifted. "If he just so happened to brush my shoulder with his, well, completely accidental, right?" "Yeah, right." I grinned at him. "I'd like you to tell us a little about yourselves." "Like what?" I asked. Silver hair shrugged. "You know. The usual. Your favorite thing, what you hate the most. Dreams, ambitions, hobbies. Things like that." "Well, in that case, why don't you go first?" I suggested. "He's right," Sakura nodded. Her arms were wrapped around her legs. "After all, you're a complete stranger to us. A mystery. Right, you're so mysterious, Bakakashi." The black-haired man, an Uchiha named Obito, he and the girl had already introduced themselves to the group, snickered. "Hey, women like a man with a bit of mystery." The girl nudged him. "Besides, it goes both ways, doesn't it?" "Mystery is sexy," Shisui agreed. Silver began, "My name is Hada Kakashi. I'm the kind of person who doesn't feel like talking about his likes and dislikes." "Too much mystery, Kakashi," Obito muttered. "My dreams for the future are none of your business. I have lots of hobbies." Kakashi smiled. "Now that that's over, why don't we start with you, on the right?" Rin facepalmed. "Me?" Madara raised an eyebrow. He certainly doesn't mean me, idiot, right? I nodded. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. I like Ramen and Iruka-sensei and this grump over here. I pointed a thumb at Sasuke, who looked a little surprised. I also like some other people. My dream is to one day become a better shinobi than Lord Hokage. Hashirama smiled and ruffled my hair. I do not doubt that you'll surpass us all. I smiled. My hobbies are taking care of my plants, playing pranks, and listening to a certain person complain. Mostly because he never really stops. Madara scowled impassively. Seriously, how does he do it? If I tried, I'd probably just look constipated. Hashirama laughed. Madara snapped at him and he got all depressed, which really frustrated Madara because he does that too easily. I realized that I'd been silent for a while and shrugged. That's about it, I suppose. Kakashi looked thoughtful. Next. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. There are plenty of things I hate, but that doesn't really matter because there is very little that I like. He hesitated before saying, Naruto is not as annoying as some other people, so I suppose he is part of that small group. Aw, Shisui-kun. Itachi smiled faintly. Madara twitched. Quiet. Shisui pretended to lock his mouth and throw away the key. As for my dreams, no, my determination dream is just a war. He glanced at me. Maybe it was my big blue puppy dog eyes or the earnest expression on my face as smiled encouragingly at him, but he rethought what he was going to say. I plan to restore my clan. Not until you're older, cousin, Obito interjected. And there is a certain man. Sasuke's face darkened. Whom I have sworn to kill. This seemed to upset Itachi. He reached out to touch his Itauto's shoulder, but Sasuke couldn't feel it and didn't notice. If that's the case, I decided, you aren't doing it alone. The young Uchiha's dark eyes flashed. Dope. I looked at him. I wasn't angry or even stern or anything. But for some reason he stopped. Naruto didn't know that he looked like help and safety and protection and companionship. But it didn't matter that he was ignorant of just how much of a guardian he looked because Sasuke was silent and wondering if perhaps he shouldn't be alone in his mission after all. Itachi had a look of fondness and pride. Kakashi coughed. Finally, the young lady. Sakura was glancing at Sasuke and I, perhaps truly seeing us for the first time. My name is Haruno Sakura. My favorite thing is you. I like dumplings, actually. And flowers. That's right, girl. Rin nodded approvingly. Let's get you out of the fangirl zone, shall we? I dislike bullies. My dream. Sakura straightened as she remembered what it had been and would topmost be again. My dream is to be a strong kunoichi. HMPH. Madara grunted. She might be worth something after all. Might be worth something. She would be worth everything. I sat in the third Hokage's office, chattering on about the test. As usual, Tobirama stood behind the old man, a tall, white-haired guardian. He and Hashirama were talking quietly, catching up with each other. Madara, as usual, had his arms folded across his chest. He'd let his hip settle against the Hokage's desk. And then Kakashi-sensei told us about the memorial stone, and Obito said that he was always brooding over there and that when he was late, he was either actually being lazy or at the stone. He said that it was really depressing to watch, and then Rin whacked him. And then he wrestled with Shisui because he was laughing at him. And then it was time to go, I concluded. Then I added, but Sasuke and Sakura were totally nice to give me their food, so they're definitely gonna join my harem. The old man choked on his spit. Hashirama just choked. I wasn't sure he had spit. What? Madara stated flatly. Perhaps you have the wrong idea of what a harem is, Tobirama stated. The old man nervously suggested the same. I blinked at them confusedly. They went on to explain it to me. Oh. Huh. I thought about it and added, cool. Not cool, Hashirama interjected a little frantically. Definitely not cool. Madara was laughing. It was deep and a little rough. I liked it. Calm down, Tobirama said. He is simply playing with you. I'm gonna be a sultan. Old man Hokage, who couldn't hear the ghosts, was looking pretty panicked. Madara was leaning against the desk now in his laughter. You brat. I beamed and surveyed the little sphere of chaos I'd created. Ah, yes. It was a good day. Who are you always talking to, Naruto? Sakura asked curiously. We were on a deer rank, pulling out weeds from old woman May's garden. You mean the ghosts? No, Madara said sarcastically, she is speaking of your other invisible friends. Aw, I cooed at him, you just called me your friend. I was very satisfied with the glower he sent me. Like that, Sakura pointed out, her fist full of weeds. Who are they? Like I said, they're ghosts. Or, I just call them ghosts. I'm not really sure. Some of the people I see are still alive. Kakashi-sensei was in a nearby tree. He was looking down at his book, but I could tell he was listening. Ooh. Sasuke glanced at me. You mean dead? Or alive? He shrugged. Either. I looked around thoughtfully and pointed at the first Hokage, who was sitting cross-legged on the grass, watching me curiously. Hashirama's over there. I then gestured at the sneering old Uchiha. Madara's the one I was just talking to. Sakura nearly choked. Madara. Uchiha Madara. And Hashirama. Wasn't he the first Hokage? Yep, I confirmed cheerfully. Kakashi-sensei wasn't bothering to pretend to be reading his book now. Obito was sulking a little because he'd been reading over his shoulder. Anyone else? Asked the silver-haired shinobi casually. Or, at least, seemingly casually. You mean Rin and Obito? Yeah, they're here. They didn't look casual at all now. Where? Well, Obito was reading over your shoulder. Kakashi jerked a little, and Rin is sitting on the branch across from you. Kakashi-sensei looked at the branch as if maybe he could see her, but he couldn't. Sasuke was watching him, black eyes thoughtful. He was smart. Is Obito your best friend on the memorial stone? Kakashi swallowed. Yes. Yes, he is. Obito's face softened. Oh. Who's Rin? Sakura asked. She was my teammate. I killed her. Rin is yelling at you, I noted. She says it's not your fault and to stop brooding about it. I blinked. Was that a swear word? I think she just used a swear word. I recoiled a little. Good gods, woman, there are children here. What do they look like? Kakashi demanded. I studied Obito first, thoughtfully. Obito has spiky black hair and his left eye is missing. He's got scars all on his right side. I gestured to my own side. He looks about as old as you, so either he was older than you, or it hasn't been that long since he died, or, for some reason, has ghost-aged with you. Kakashi-sensei was looking a little less crazed and more thoughtful. Good. And Rin? Well, it's kinda weird. Obito's older, but she's still a kid. She's got brown hair and markings on her cheeks. They're purple, I added. He hummed thoughtfully. Interesting. And you see Madara and Hashirama as well. Yeah. They've both got long black hair, but Hashirama's is straight while Madara's is crazy. Madara did that emotionless disdainful sneer thing. I'll show you crazy, child. I can see a whole lot of other people, but they're not here right now. I didn't mention Itachi. I didn't think it would go well. I gave him an apologetic look. He shrugged his shoulders a little. He could see the reasoning in that. He was a very reasonable person, Ghost. Whatever. Does anybody else know about this? Kakashi asked. Just the Hokage. He nodded briskly. Right. Back to work, now. Darn. I thought he'd forgotten. We went back to work. After a while, Kakashi-sensei picked up his book and began reading again. I think he was turning the pages a little slower, though. If Obito noticed, he didn't say anything about it, just settled his chin on Kakashi's shoulder and continued reading with him. Rin looked happy about that. All in a day's work, ladies and gentlemen. All in a day's work. Stop looking so smug, Madara grumbled. I didn't. The cat was purring, rubbing up against legs unseen. Hashirama knelt down, brushing his fingers against its fur. Who is it? Sakura whispered to me. Hashirama, I said. Apparently animals loved the first Hokage. Getting the cat back to its owner was relatively easy. It just followed him with a devotion akin to how I felt about Raymond. HMPH. Madara grumped. I smiled knowingly at him. Jealous. He raised a black eyebrow. Of what? It's okay, I cooed. I'm sure Hashirama will pet you too, if you ask nicely. The retribution I had no doubt incurred was worth a look on his face. I winced as the cat's owner cooed, rubbing her face against it, holding it tightly in her arms as it yowled and tried to get away. Hashirama was wincing. Even Madara looked a little sympathetic. Kind of. If you looked really, really closely and were slightly delusional. A third Hokage cleared his throat. Now, the next assignment for yes Naruto. I'd held my hand up. Do you think we might qualify for a C rank? He peered at us thoughtfully. You've done very well these past few months. Very well. I don't see why not. I grinned. Thanks, old man. He smiled slightly. I wondered if maybe he could feel Tobirama's comforting presence at his back just a little bit. Are you sure, Lord Hokage? Iruka-sensei asked, sounding concerned. The old man waved a hand. It'll be fine. It's only a C rank. What could go wrong? There was a pause. Wow, Obito finally spoke. I can't believe he just said that. He shook his head. We've been jinxed, guys. Let's run while we still can. We didn't, of course. This is usually reserved for shinobi of the journeyman level, but your team has proven yourselves quite capable. You will be protecting a certain individual. My hopeful expectations were dashed to little tiny pieces when a white-haired man stepped into the room, taking a swig from a bottle of alcohol. This is them? He asked condescendingly. They look like a bunch of wet-nosed brats. Especially the shorty there. He looks like an idiot. The bits of hope and optimism left over screamed in agony as they withered and died. Wow, said Obito. What a douche. Ow. Rin, Wijaya hit me. Tiled, I'm afraid you'll have to request another client. Madara sneered. As this one is going to be dead in a minute when I get my hands on him. I see dead people, I told the client. And one of them wants to kill you. He stared at me. I stared back. He turned to the third Hokage. Can I get another? No, said the old man sternly. They are who you are stuck with. Treat them well. He sighed and turned back. My name is Tazuna. He went on to say some other things. Bridge builder, blah blah blah, country, yada yada, protect him with our lives. Ooh. Ladybug. What? Did I miss something? Oh. I said that out loud, didn't I? What? I said defensively. It's pretty. Itachi looked amused. Sakura just facepalmed. We'd been traveling for a while when Sakura spoke up, asking about the bridge builder's country, the land of waves. She wondered if there were ninja there, and Kakashi-sensei explained about that, but I kinda zoned out. I think I started to hum sometime into his explanation, but then Kakashi-sensei laughed and I forgot. I was jolted out of my reverie when Madara noticed the puddle that we were approaching. Strange. I don't believe it has rained for several days, Itachi observed. That's not good, is it? I said it as a question, but it was more like a statement. Shit, Obito concluded. His eyes then widened and he hurried to say, crap. Don't repeat that. I gave him an entirely unimpressed look. But I didn't have time to respond as we were attacked just then. A chain wrapped around Kakashi-sensei and pulled him apart. Well, it appeared it did. I guessed that it was just a show because Obito just stared at the place his friend had been, then turned and shook his fist, howling, "Back Kakashi, you asshole." I may have freaked people out a little by choking on a laugh. Naruto. Hashirama yelled, too late. The two enemy shinobi had chosen me as their next target. Luckily, they hadn't counted on my best bud being a total BAMF. He jumped, throwing a shuriken and a kunai, nailing the wickedly sharp chain to a tree. Now. Madara barked. Sasuke couldn't hear him, but he didn't have to. He landed on their arms, which were held up in place by the chain that attached them. He used them as leverage for the kick he aimed at their faces. Madara cursed. Move, you idiot child. Right. The two shinobi released the chain that held them there as they fell, and they would have caught their balance if Madara hadn't reminded me that perhaps I should do something about that. I grabbed onto the masks that covered their faces and used their momentum to drive them downward. Sasuke, I called. He immediately threw himself onto one of them while I took the other. Luckily, I had a kunai on me and I used the blunt end to whack the guy on the head. Sasuke's guy was also unconscious. I didn't see what happened, but I wouldn't put it past him to have knocked the guy out with just his sheer awesomeness. I stood up and called, okay, come on out now, Kakashi-sensei. Suddenly, he was there. He smiled cheerfully at us. Good work, team. Rin and Obito were staring at him with a ticked expression on their faces. I think Rin and Obito want to beat you up, I observed. I also got the same feeling from Itachi, who was standing close to Sasuke with his hands placed on his Itauto's shoulders, doing that impassive glare thing that all Uchihas can do. I just wanted to see what you would do, Kakashi-sensei protested. Madara's hand was twitching towards the sword at his side. Hashirama didn't look like he would stop him. In fact, I'm pretty sure he would have joined in the slaughter. If the ghosts could touch you, you would be dead right now, I told him seriously. Obito strolled over to me, placing a hand on my shoulder. It was twitching. Hey, Naruto, he said casually. It was scary. Why don't you do a favor for me, huh? Just kill the guy a little. For me? Rin smiled sweetly. Yes, Naruto. I'm sure he wouldn't be missed for long. She spread her hands. After all, many unpredictable things can happen on any type of mission. Who can blame you if you come back without him? I stared at Kakashi-sensei. I'm pretty sure I managed to convey exactly what Obito and Rin were trying to sweet-talk me into doing, because he may have cringed a little. It may also have been because I said, they want me to either maim you or kill you right here and hide the body. He swallowed. Right. Well, I think I need to have a little talk with Tazuna-san. He fled. Right. Yes. Rin cracked her knuckled. Let's have a little talk with him, shall we? Obito gave her a sly grin. Out of nowhere, a kunai had appeared in his hands. I like the way you think. Obito, stop caressing that kunai. It's freaking me out, I said. It may have been my imagination, but at that, Kakashi-sensei hurried away a little faster while I was stuck with the ghosts. Lucky dastard. After Tazuna-san had confessed about Gato the millionaire and his aspirations of dominion, then practically used emotional blackmail to get us to continue with our mission, we were well on our way to our destination. We'd hitched a ride with on some guy's boat to get across the water, which we needed to do to get to the land of waves. He'd taken us as far as he dared, and after thanking him, we were off. Currently, I was walking beside my favorite lunch buddy, who had his hands in his pockets and was slouching all cool like. You should stand straighter, I told him. Sure, you might look cool now, but that slump is gonna make itself known later in your life, and you won't notice that your posture is getting worse and worse until your hunch is forcing you to practically bend over. Then you'll just be that hunchback guy who actually makes other people's backs hurt when they look at you. So they won't. Do you want that, Sasuke? Do you? Obito, listening in, winced at the imagery. Itachi coughed, clearly to mask the laugh that he was holding in. I'm onto you, face lines. Sasuke was eyeing me a little weird now, but at least he'd straightened. I counted that as a Waiu. Bunny. I watched with delight as the white rabbit hopped across the path we were following. Rin frowned in confusion. Is that a snow hare? I thought they were only white in the winter. I paused. But that would mean nope, I got nothing. It's been kept indoors, out of the sunlight. Use your brain, brat. What little you have of one. Madara sneered. Your earnest support stuns me, Maddie, I said deadpan. Don't call me that. How about Dara? I will kill you slowly and without regard to your pleas for mercy. Dara it is, then. He growled at me. Growled. I moved closer to Sasuke. Better safe than sorry, right? Madara. Naruto. Down. Hashirama barked at the same time that Kakashi-sensei and Itachi gave a similar command. I ducked. Meanwhile, Madara just stood there as something sharp whirled right through him, complaining, we're ghosts, you idiot Senju. It doesn't matter if we move, we can't get hurt anyway. Ah. Hashirama smiled, somewhat sheepishly. Right. Aw, Dara, don't be like that. You know it's just because he cares about you, I drawled from the ground. I ignored whatever the older Uchiha sputtered as I looked up to see some guy with bandages over the lower half of his face, like Kakashi-sensei's mask, standing on the hilt of one big-ass sword, which was stuck in a tree. Kakashi-sensei stared at him steadily. Well, if it isn't Mamachi's abuser. He said something else, but I got distracted because for some reason his name made me think of bean dumplings. Dumplings. Are you drooling? Obito asked suspiciously. What? Me? What are you talking about? Drooling. You weirdo. I snapped back into focus when Kakashi-sensei said something about not interfering and how Bean Dumpling was on a different plane from our previous opponents. Madara scoffed. Different plane. I'll show him a different plane. I'm sure you will, I said indulgently. They all looked at me. Oh. Hadn't Bean Dumpling said something about surrendering the old man just then? Oops. Kakashi-sensei just sighed and turned back to the enemy food stuff. Just protect Azuna-san, will you? And stay out of this fight. He'd reached up to grasp the hit I ate covering his eye. Now, Zabuza. What? Dumpling had a different name. Shall we? He pulled the headband up. I peered up at his face and exclaimed, oh. That's Obito's, isn't it? Of course. The eye he covered was the exact one that Obito was missing. Surprise registered on Sasuke's face. Kakashi-sensei looked down at me with slight amusement. Yes, he answered, it's his. Bean Dumpling's abuser went off about the eye, which I'd long learned from Madara was called the Sharingan, while I mentally congratulated and greeted a familiar friend. Hello, slow incoming comprehension. It's nice to meet you. What? Intelligence. What do you mean you can't find it anywhere? Well, forget you, too. I blinked when Zabuza, apparently finished with his rant, suggested that while the conversation, strange, I'd always thought a conversation was something two people participated in. Have I been wrong all this time? Was very pleasant, they should probably get on with it. Something about having a tight schedule to polish off the old man. Oh? Low on time, are you? Well, so long as you give him a good shine. Don't forget the starch. I blinked and suddenly Zabuza Dumpling was standing on the lake we'd incidentally stopped near. It started to get really misty, which I suspected was his doing. The finest of the ninja arts, he stated as the mist began to completely obscure him. The Kurigakur Jutsu. Then he was gone. Like a magician, I thought, and suddenly, in my mind he was wearing a dark tux, a top hat perched atop his head. One trousered leg was crossed casually over the other. One hand was settled on the hilt of his sword, which was the size of a small cane, and he used it like one, leaning his weight against it. And for my next trick, he would say, I am going to kill you all. But this toothpick. No, seriously. You're dead. He hefted his weapon. Say hello to my little friend, Sorty McSwirtlet. He likes to stab people. He's a bit eccentric like that, but aren't we all? No Mr. Bean Magician, sir, I don't think we are. You're pretty special like that. And by special I mean crazy like a fox. I suddenly realized that one. I, in fact, was the one who was crazy like a fox. And two. Sasuke was shaking. I was puzzled. Was he cold or something? But Itachi was holding on to him. Sasuke. The boy in question jerked to Kakashi-sensei's voice. Calm down. Even if he gets me, I'll still protect you. Oh. Were they talking about Sabinza? Kakashi-sensei looked at us and smiled. I will never let my comrades die. Not again. Oh, Obito sighed, echoing my sentiment. The voice came from the mist. Don't bet on it. Saw, you ain't never seen me play roulette. I mean, neither have I, but that doesn't matter. Behind me, a presence and Bean Buza's voice saying, game over. It wasn't, obviously. Because Kakashi was there with a kunai. Like a boss. For some reason, I thought of him sitting in a smoke-filled messy office, paperwork everywhere, while he sat back in a black leather chair, legs settled on his desk, ankles crossed. He held a coffee cup in one hand and a glazed donut in the other. Taking a bite of the donut, he stated with his mouth full, "Not my division," before taking a large drink of coffee. He was the very picture of a lazy, useless boss who let all the paperwork accumulate in the hopes that someone would finally get sick of it all and do it for him. Thank God he isn't like that, I thought, gazing at our teacher. It was then that I noticed that he appeared to be stuck in some kind of sphere of water, at the probably non-existent mercy of Zababine. What the heck? When had that happened? Zabini created a water doppelganger, which then went off on a rant about real ninja. And then he kicked me in the face. Naruto. Cried Sakura and Hashirama and Rin and Obito. Wow, had they practiced that? Madara cursed. You idiot. Rather rude of him, I thought. I blinked up at the sky from where I'd fallen. Dude, ow, I said. Sasuke snorted, but it sounded kinda relieved. Dope. Timmy, listen to me, Timmy, don't fall down a well. What? How that had come out weird. Kakashi-sensei was yelling at us to take Tazuna, to leave him and go. I carefully sat up, wincing. I glanced at the object the Zabu doppel was standing on. Was that my headband? Oh, hell no. I rushed at him. He hit me again, but it was totally part of my master plan. I was thrown all the way back to Sakura and Sasuke, but that too was all part of my genius. What were you thinking? Sakura shrieked. Thinking? Was I thinking? Junior ninja like us can't, she trailed off at the sight of the hit I 8-leaf headband in my hand. Idiot child. Madara's fists were clenched. Hashirama carefully took one of his hands in his and slowly helped to uncurl the fingers. The old Uchiha managed to let his hands relax. If he hadn't been a ghost, I suspect his palms would have bleeding crescent cuts in each one. Hashirama held the hand in his to his cheek, turning his face into the undamaged palm. He calmly met Madara's red Sharingan eyes with his own dark ones. Not for the first time, I wondered if something had changed in their afterlife. Like, say, their sexual orientation. Or if they'd been like that before. Or whether they were just really, really close friends. Madara noticed my gaze and snapped, "Wipe that obscene smirk from your face, brat." Hashirama's expression was the very picture of confused and oblivious. Wiping the blood and the smirk mostly from my mouth, I redirected my stare at Zabuza. Yo, dumpling. Got a new listing for your bingo book, whispered my mind. Thank Kami for a subconscious that listens while I'm zoning out. For your bingo book. I said triumphantly. It's the name of the dude who's gonna be the next Lord Hokage of Konohagakure. Remember his name, he's a real cool guy. I coughed. When he's not speaking in the third person, anyway. I tied my headband to my forehead. Uzumaki Naruto, yo. Konoha school, ninja. I emphasized the ninja since Abusa Bean seemed particularly keen on dismissing it. Then I gestured at Sakura and Sasuke. And my sidekicks, BAMF Blossom and Awesome the ass kicker. Awesome's the teen heartthrob over there, by the way. Almost, Obito groaned. You were almost cool, Naruto. I ignored him. Almost. Police. There's no almost about it. Quote unquote, yo. Right, BAMF, awesome. I turned to them. I got us a plan, for reals. Awesome the ass kicker looked slightly pained for some reason, but it couldn't have anything to do with me, so I ignored it. So, here's what we do. Ready? I asked cheerfully. Zabby and Dumpling sneered. You're very sure of yourself. You think you three brats can take me? I told you to run. Kakashi-sensei barked. Do your duty. We're here to protect Azuna-san. I blinked and looked back at the old man. Gramps. He looked back at us. I got us into this mess by lying. He smiled. Give it everything you've got. I beamed. Now that was a surprisingly cool guy. HMF. Sasuke smirked. Let's go. Zabuza began to chuckle. Apparently you don't care whether you live any longer. He went on, with occasional input from Master Kakashi. Playing ninja hands died by enemies, blood demon blah blah blah. To be honest, I wasn't really listening. I blame Madara's brother. Mostly because he chose that moment to appear. He would never admit it, but the big bad Uchiha brightened upon seeing his little brother's face. Izuna. Hello Madara. Hashirama. He looked curiously at Obito and Rin. They introduced themselves, and then we were all buddy-buddy. Hashirama cheerfully clapped Izuna on the back. Nice to see you again, Izuna. I've not been gone that long, Izuna protested. No, but I'm sure it felt like years to your doting, obsessed brother. Madara shot him a glare. I am not obsessed. Ah, but you don't deny that you dote on him. Why should he? I interjected. It's true, after all. Quiet, Madara muttered, proceeding to cling to his brother like peanut to butter. I spared a moment of envy for wishing that I had a minion as devoted as that. Wow, that's Madara. I heard Obito whisper to Rin. Somehow, he's not what I expected. Itachi nudged me. Naruto, about the graduation exercise. I blinked confusedly. Graduation exercise. What graduation exercise? Zabuza answered, a killing spree among students. What? Okay, what did I missed? It was explained and I listened intently until is that a butterfly? Pretty. And then Mamani Zabuba was in front of Sasuke, throwing his elbow into him and smashing him to the ground. The young Uchiha coughed. There was blood. It seemed to grow dark around Itachi, whose Sharingan red eyes were flashing. Oh, crap, I exclaimed. I didn't know if Itachi could seriously possess me to kick Zabu's backside, but I didn't want to take that chance. Zabu sneered down at Sasuke, one foot on his stomach. Time to die. Oh, hell, no. I quickly made the seals for Art of the Doppelganger, took out my kunai, and attacked. Of course, he swatted us all away with his big freaking sword, but all I'd wanted was for Sasuke to be able to get away. The sword hit me, too, of course, but I managed to get my backpack off as I flew and reached into it, closing my hand around my target and throwing it to Sasuke as I skidded by, and can I just say, ow. Sasuke, awesome ass kicker that he is, rolled with it. He took the huge shuriken and jumped into the air to throw it at Zabuza. It flew past his clone and straight at Zabuza himself. Amateur. He sneered, catching the shuriken, but there was a second in the shadow of the first one. He dodged that, saying, still an amateur. I just knew Sasuke was smirking as the shadow shuriken transformed back into me. Zabuza didn't expect that and wasn't prepared for the kunai I lobbed at him. He had to move, pulling his arm from the water prison he trapped Kakashi-sensei in, or else lose an arm. That predictably made him pretty angry. He pulled his arm back to pitch the large shuriken in his hand at me, but the trap that had kept Kakashi-sensei from moving had collapsed and, well, his fist got in the way of the shuriken. Zabuza gasped. I gazed at him, a little in awe. In that moment, he looked a little like some wrathful silver-haired god, a guardian with mismatched eyes risen in fury from the sea, though it was actually a lake. And he also looked kinda like a drowned rat. And then he spoke. Naruto, your plan was brilliant. Sasuke, Sakura, you've grown. All of you. Yep. In spirit, if not stature. Zalosa tried to scoff. So you made me fly into such a rage that I dropped the spell holding the water prison together. No. You didn't drop your spell. It was broken from without, answered Kakashi-sensei. And he proceeded to beat the stuffing out of the Mist Nin. He copied all of his moves at the same time as Zabuza did them, and it really freaked out the criminal. Meanwhile, I was still in the lake. Naruto, Hashirama called, gesturing, come on over here. I trudged over, soaking wet of course. I shivered. Suddenly, it seemed much colder than it had when I was dry. Gee. Wonder why. I was glad to have my jumpsuit on, at least. I noticed that Itachi was hovering over his little brother. I wondered if Sasuke could feel his warmth. But then I was distracted by the needles that were suddenly sticking out of Zabuza's neck. Seriously, just ouch. But I supposed it didn't matter, as he was most likely dead. My attention was drawn to the person standing on a nearby tree limb. I couldn't see his face for the mask over it. DCH. Madara scowled. Who's that brat? Kakashi-sensei placed his fingers over Zabuza's pulse. And found none, I expected. He's a hunter nin, brother, Izuna said patiently. Really, Madara, is your mind going already? Already? Wasn't he 100 or 2 years old? I would think that it had gone long ago. Impertinent imp, Madara muttered, scowl deepening as he held his brother closer. He might as well have mumbled, why do I love you, but he didn't. Because he, quite frankly, basically just did. And when you just did something, why bother questioning it? Izuna cracked a grin. I waved at the boy who was clearly still a teenager. Who are you? Well, he's not an enemy, Kakashi-sensei answered, pushing himself to his feet. Yeah. That's not what I asked. Don't give that dull look to your teacher, you disrespective son of a red-hot habanero. What? Nothing. He coughed. Anyway, this probably won't be the last time that we face someone who's both younger than you and stronger than me. Shouldn't that be stronger than I? I wondered. His hand, in the middle of ruffling my hair, tightened on my head. Naruto, yeah? Just don't think too much. Okay. I'm sure that will be very easy for you. I had a mean teacher. After that, the hunter nin quickly took Zabuza's body and left. And then Kakashi-sensei collapsed, apparently having used the Sharingan more than he should have. Some teacher you are, I commented. Naruto, shutting up right now, teach. So, here we were. Training. Because apparently, Zabuza Bean wasn't dead after all, and that hunter nin was simply his accomplice or something. This, of course, was after we got to Zuna-san home. And our encounter with his grandson, who was very cynical about heroes. Heroes? What heroes? Yeah. I nearly choked. What heroes? But the black-haired ghost with the X-shaped scar on his chin looked sad. He gave me an apologetic smile and went to comfort Inari in his own unseen way. Right. Training. Kakashi-sensei wanted to discuss chakra, but I already knew all about it thanks to my ghosts. So, we were climbing trees. It made a lot more sense once I learned that we weren't going to use our hands. Even Sasuke looked interested when Kakashi-sensei demonstrated for us. The first time I tried, I ended up falling back and whacking my head on the ground while Madara bust a gut laughing. "It's too bad you can't laugh to death," I told him as I got up. "Just snicker, concentrate, Naruto." "I heard that, you know," I said. "You're not fooling anybody, Rama. Your poker face is non-existent. Simply do as we do," Izuna advised the first Hokage, and laugh without restraint at the happenings of idiots. "You guys suck," I grumbled. And so it went. I didn't really get anywhere even after a while, and Hashirama and Madara didn't really have any useful advice for me. I didn't know whether they climbed trees back when they were still alive, but if they did, they probably didn't have a hard time of it. They were a pair of seriously overpowered geniuses, though they had their moments of idiocy, much to my delight. Sakura actually made it farther than any of us on her first try, so I thought I'd see if she'd give me any tips. The next day, I was nearly equal with Sasuke. I say nearly, because I got easily distracted and that made me lose concentration. Knowing this, I closed my eyes and focused on my feet until my concentration was such that everything else was dark. And then Sasuke said, "Hey Naruto." With a sigh, I opened my eyes to the light. "Yeah. Oh well," I blinked at him curiously. He looked away self-consciously. And was that a flush to his cheeks? What did Sakura say to you? Wow. He really wasn't used to asking for help, was he? But despite his discomfort, he did so. I smiled at him and explained. "It takes energy to generate and manipulate chakra, so if you get all stressed and distracted it won't work. I get distracted real easily, and that's why it's so hard for me. You need to relax and focus on the tree you're climbing until you can feel how much energy you need to center in the soles of your feet." He nodded thoughtfully and began to turn away before pausing. He looked back at me and said, a little clumsily, "Thanks." I gave him a slightly lopsided grin. "Yeah." Sitting cross-legged with his back against a tree, Itachi watched us and smiled a little. "Boy, this is real fun." Tazuna-san laughed. "I don't know the last time I shared a meal with so many people." I gave him a grin. "Well, I'm happy to eat with you whenever you want." If Madara had been any less coolly dignified, he would have rolled his eyes. "Of course you are." Later, when we were having tea, Sakura was peering at a photograph on the wall. Why is this picture torn?" Little Inari was looking at this all through dinner. "But someone's face is completely gone, is that deliberate?" I noticed Izuna-san, his daughter Tsunami pause. Inari had tensed. "It was a picture of Inari's father," Ms. Tsunami said carefully. "Once upon a time, if you will, our entire city called him a hero." Tazuna-san looked regretful. Abruptly, Inari stood up and began walking to the door. The black-haired man with the scarred chin followed him, looking upset. "Inari, where are you going?" Tsunami-san called. "Inari." The door slammed shut. I frowned. I didn't like the way the boy treated his mother. If I'd had mine, I wouldn't have treated her that way. Tsunami-san rounded on Tazuna-san. "Dad. I told you not to say anything in front of my son." She snapped. Sakura's brow furrowed. "You're talking about whatever it is that's making Inari act so strangely. Sounds like there's a story there," Kakashi-san commented. The man in the picture wasn't Inari's birth father. But they loved each other as much as any biological father and son would have. Inari was such a happy, laughing child back then. Tazuna-san began to cry. But Inari changed after what happened to his father. Madara's lip had curled when tears had started sliding down the old man's face. He said nothing when Hashirama gave him a sharp look but leaned against the wall and sneered faintly. Our people and especially little Inari were robbed of the meaning of courage because of what happened that day. "What happened?" Kakashi-sensei repeated. "What did happen? What could have changed that kid so much?" Izuna-san slid off his wire-rimmed glasses to wipe his eyes. "Let me start from the beginning. I'll tell you about the man our entire land called a champion and a hero." And thus began the dreaded backstory. At the end of it all, Madara was not happy. "He's a brat," he concluded. Madara began the first Hokage. "Stay silent, Hashirama," snapped the old Uchiha. "He shames his father with this behavior. He does not acknowledge so-called heroes, yet what is Kaiza? It was an honorable death that he died because of protecting this very land. Protecting that child, but does he recognize it?" He scoffed. Izuna shifted closer and Madara drew his brother to his side. Hashirama sighed but also moved nearer to his old enemy and friend. "Alright." I decidedly pushed myself from my chair. But my training made itself known in a most displeased way and I staggered. Sakura noticed. "What are you doing, Naruto? Don't even think about training anymore today," Kakashi-sensei warned. "If you try to work your chakras without getting some rest first, you'll most likely kill yourself." "I'm going to show him," I said. "Show what?" "To whom?" Sakura questioned. "Inari. He believes that there aren't any heroes in this world." I smiled. "There are. And I'm going to show him." "You talk big, child," Madara remarked. "Oh?" Is it talking big if I fully intend to do as I say? I don't go back on my word, I reminded him as I walked out the door. You know that. We shall see, child, he murmured. We shall see. Yes. They would. In that moment, if Tsunadeheim, Akka the slug princess, Akka the sucker had bet on him, she would have made millions. And probably been twitchy the rest of the time waiting for the other shoe to drop, but still millions. You'll catch your death of cold, sleeping on the ground like this, came a soft feminine voice. And I opened my eyes, looking up groggily. A woman was leaning over me with a friendly smile. I sat up, rubbing my eyes. Who are you? I didn't get her name, but somehow I ended up collecting herbs for her. I'm sorry to have imposed on you, she apologized. I waved a dismissive hand. It's no problem. But this is some job you took, lady, picking all this so early in the morning. Look at who's talking, she retorted. What were you doing here, at the crack of dawn? I gave her a wide grin. Training. Really? She peered at me. That headband you're wearing, are you some kind of ninja? Don't you remember me? I asked, puzzled. We met earlier, when you took that bean dumpling guy. She looked confused. Bean dumpling. Zabuza, I clarified. She stilled. You know. I nodded amiably. Yeah. How? She asked warily. I wondered if I should mention the ghost Zabuza who was following her around, currently leaning against a nearby tree with his arms crossed. I just recognized you. Though I didn't know that you were a girl when we first met. She relaxed enough to give me a small smile. I'm not. I gaped. Seriously? He looked more feminine than Sakura. Really? Yes. Wow. Huh. After a pause I added, I'm Naruto. He looked surprised. You're introducing yourself to your enemy? My enemy? But I'm collecting herbs with you, I protested. Do we have to be enemies right now? He hesitated before offering, I'm Haku. I grinned widely. Well, we've got a pretty big pile here. Is there anything else you need? Oh, are these for beer, Zabuza? I realized. He lowered his head in a nod. Yes. Some of those, perhaps. He pointed, then asked curiously, why do you call him that? Bean dumpling. His name just reminds me of it, I explained. And now I can't really think of him as anything else. I see. He didn't look like he did. Can I ask you something? I didn't look up as I picked some more herbs. Of course. I may not answer, but go ahead. Why are you working for Gato? I mean, from what I've heard of him, he doesn't seem like he'll hold up his end of the deal. He knows better than to mess with Master Zabuza. Really? I said doubtfully. He sounds really conceited, but if you think so. Madara's expression was amused. You devious brat. Haku looked at me evenly. Enough. I believe these herbs are fine. I may have pouted a little. The sky was dark. Sasuke stood, balanced casually on the top of his tree, cool guy that he is, while I clung to mine like a spider monkey to peanut butter. Want to head back? K. He smiled. I swear, it was an honest to Kami smile. Kind of smirkish, but you know baby steps. Later, at the dinner table, after Sasuke had half carried me back, I don't know why, but Inari just blew up. He shouted at me, about how we'll never beat Gato, about how I don't know anything, and this wasn't my town, and that I didn't know a thing about him. I was always clowning around, having fun, not knowing a thing of loneliness or suffering. I admit. I didn't take it well. I know. I was lucky I had my ghosts. I didn't want to think of what life would be like without them. But even with them, I was ostracized and hated by most of the village, barring a very few. But how I loved those few. So, yes. I snapped. Pent-up frustration was so fun to let loose, especially on a little kid. I feel like such a jerk. Suck it up. He was a brat, you were a brat, you're both still brats, Madara said offhandedly. Wow. Madara, you excel at this comforting thing. Do you take lessons? Oh, no, believe me, Izuna said airily, this is natural. A veritable inborn mother, I spoke with awe. Indeed. The way he fusses over you just makes you feel all warm and fuzzy inside, doesn't it? Hashirama mused. Like an overheated bunny, I added. They turned to stare at me. Finally, Izuna said, okay, we were ganging up on him and it was fun, but then you just made it weird. What? You should be used to this by now, I defended. You and your little quirks, Hashirama said fondly. Yes. My psychosis is adorable, isn't it? Bedtime, Madara decided. Oh, but I'm not even at my weirdest yet, I protested. Dim a minute or two. Go to bed, brat. Okay. They ditched me. I overslept but they ditched me. I hurried as fast as I could to get to the bridge, but then of course I found a stuck pig in the forest slashed to ribbons, which, by the way, what the heck? And had to go back. I beat up the two guys sent there by Gato to take Inari's mom hostage, and then I apologized to the kid, who I admitted was actually rather brave. A big, strong boy, I said. He cried again, but this time not because he was sad. I think I've got a new little brother now. But anyway, when I finally got to the bridge, the fight was in full swing. I may have made a bit of a show at my entrance. Does it mean anything that when I got there, Haku said aloud, the maverick showstopper comedy ninja. I groaned. Kakashi-sensei. What have you been telling these folks? The truth, he said bluntly. Oh, I whined. Naruto, Sasuke called in irritation. Stop with your comedy sketch and come on. I pouted. Even you, Sasuke. I thought you were on my side. I don't side with the circus, thanks. Such dry humor. You kill me. I will if you don't get over here and not with my humor. Right, boss? I scurried over. Not into the middle of the mirrors, you idiot. Sheesh, can't get anything right, I muttered. What can I say? We fought. Haku was seriously far above us at our current strengths. Oh, we got a couple of senbon stuck in us, nothing fatal, which was nice. Still hurt, though. Hashirama was cringing, and both he and Madara would shout suggestions, commands at me on what to do. Madara's were mostly insulting, but then, when weren't they? Never. Never, I say. I didn't bother yelling comebacks mostly. What? I can't keep this brilliance inside. No matter if I seem cray-cray to my opponent, my wit cannot be held back. What wit? Shut up, inner Madara. Then don't talk nonsense, brat. Arg. Why couldn't I have had Hashirama as a voice in my head? He's not mean enough. I see why you got the job, then. Watch the fight, you little idiot. Ouch. I lay on the ground, groaning, back pierced with needles, but then I heard him, Sasuke, say, geez, no matter how many times I warn you, you just keep getting in my way, don't you, Naruto? I looked up quickly. Sasuke. He was standing in front of me. Covered in needles, red blood splattering the ground to match his eyes. Get that expression off your face, you dope. I managed. HMPH. A tired smirk crossed his face. I used to hate you, you know, but you just wouldn't leave me alone. His smirk fell. You get under people's skin, you know. Why? I asked, anguished. Itachi was standing at his brother's side, but I think he was frozen in place. How should I know? I just moved, didn't think, fool. I didn't know who he was calling a fool, me or him. But then he fell, and it didn't matter, and I caught him. I swore I wouldn't die, he coughed. It was bloody. Until I killed him, my brother thought the oath would save me, for some reason, but you don't you dare die. Me? I choked out a laugh. Don't you dare die, you I don't even Sasuke. He'd closed his eyes when he'd been speaking. He probably wasn't going to open them again. His body was lax in my arms. I noticed, somewhat irrelevantly, that he was far too thin. I should have taken him out to eat more. Haku was speaking. He sacrificed himself for me. Yes, I know he did that. Kinda hard to miss. A shinobi worthy of the utmost respect. Yes, he was that. Is this the first time a comrade of mine has died? Let me think about that. Such is the ninja's path. Stop talking. Gods, just stop. Naruto, one of my ghosts. Which one? Hashirama. I didn't notice. I exhaled. So this was what people meant when they talked about their vision going red. I gently set down my young friend, softly pushing his black hair back with one clawed hand before standing up. Red chakra swirled around me, thick and inhuman yet so familiar. The person Haku, it's Haku, remember quickly threw several needles at me. I deflected them as he leapt to another ice mirror. Then he drove forward again, a senbon in his hand. I threw myself out of the way. He threw himself, presumably to get to another mirror, but I caught him. Everything was so fast, the next thing I knew, I was driving my fist into his face. He was thrown through his own mirror, and it shattered, ice shards falling to the ground like so much glass. The rest quickly followed. I leapt at him and almost punched him again, but his mask had cracked and fallen to pieces, and he didn't move to stop me. So I halted myself. Why did you stop? Stop talking. I murdered your comrade, your beloved friend, and you still spare me? He asked incredulously. Don't look back, don't look back, don't look back. I looked back. I punched him. Again. On the ground, Haku coughed and pushed himself back up. And he talked. He talked so much, and I asked questions. Why? And he answered, once, I was precious, and he was so much like me that it hurt. He talked of Zabuza and he smiled, and that hurt too. I think his heart was more than a little broken, and then it came to me, I knew what I was, and I was forced to accept it. That was the most painful thing, accepting that I was alone in the world, superfluous. Unwanted. Shunned. And then he told me to take his life. Beside him, the ghost Zabuza tensed. No. Kid, don't you dare, he snapped. Please, Naruto. Kill me. What are you waiting for? What is with you? I snapped. You want me to kill you just because you lost. There's more to life than just fighting. There's more to you. You can't be nothing but a tool to Zabuza. He looked sad. That day we met in the forest, I remember thinking that we were two of a kind. Surely you can understand. Understand? Understand what? You'll have to bloody your hands. Forgive me for that. He sounded truly regretful. No, Ghost Zabuza ground out. My brow furrowed. This is it. There's no other way. There's no other outcome. Yes. Haku looked so accepting. Zabuza Ikray stepped in front of the young shinobi. You go through me to get to him. Madara let out a short laugh. Well, he does care. I stared at him thoughtfully for a moment before stepping back. No. Haku looked startled. No. I won't kill you. Trust me, your boss wouldn't like it. You wouldn't want to make him cry, would you? But he looked completely befuddled before demanding, why? I killed your comrade. Damn it, Haku, Zabuza Ikray ground out before turning to me. He's not dead. He's just in a comatose state. Ah. Like what Haku had done to Zabuza when pretending to be a hunter nin. Oh, good. I felt like beaming, but managed to keep it down. He's not dead. So I won't kill you. I won't take away someone else's precious person. How I'm not, you are. I can tell. Zabuza really cares for you. It was clear Haku was doubtful about that. I am simply his tool. I shook my head. Believe me. You're a lot more than that. Perhaps he didn't believe me completely, but from the look of wonder on his face, he was starting to. Suddenly, Zabuza cursed. Shit. As if he'd heard him, Haku's attention snapped elsewhere. Sorry, Naruto, I've got to. Oh. He went. Behind me, I could hear Madara's voice, full of amusement. You're soft, child. That's not always a bad thing, Dara, I responded. Don't call me that. Izuna sighed. Just give up, brother. You know he delights in enraging us. Please. I flipped a hand. Just you. Not at all. By us I meant everybody. I grinned and winked. You know it. Hashirama coughed. Ahem. Shouldn't you be checking on young Sasuke? Oh, right. Brilliant mind, that one, remarked the lingering Zabuza ghost. A real genius, Izuna agreed. Shut up. So eloquent too, Hashirama added. Madara chuckled. Grumbling, I went to check on the only person who wouldn't insult me. Considering that was only because he was in a comatose state, that was pretty sad. Haku arrived on the scene to find Kakashi-sensei going at Zabuza with some kindle-lightning attack. Zabuza wasn't able to move because he was being held in place by Kakashi-sensei's dog summons, so Haku tackled Kakashi-sensei, causing the attack to be misdirected into the concrete of the bridge. Not long after that, Geto had shown up, along with a bunch of hired Nukenin in predictable betrayal. Predictable to me and my ghosts, at least. Anyway, that hadn't gone over well with either Haku, totally alive. Yay. Or Zabuza, and as he was no longer in Geto's employ, he went ahead and completely slaughtered them all. Well, most of them. The rest ran when they saw him coming. Sasuke woke soon after that. I may or may not have cried manly tears of joy at his revival. Also may or may not have squished him to me like an enthusiastic mother in the midst of a sudden bout of strong affection for her adorable child. Maybe. I think Itachi wished he could do the same. He settled for hovering over his brother almost anxiously. I made a mental note to hug him the next time the opportunity came up, i.e. when there weren't any alive people around. And then Inari came, along with the villagers, armed with various weapons that probably hadn't actually been weapons, before they decided to use them as such. Later, it was really awkward having Zabuza and Haku over for dinner, but I insisted, and Haku was okay with it. Awkward for other people, I mean. I actually kinda liked them. Before they left, I told Haku that I would write to him and to see Izuna-san about the letters whenever they passed through the area. He promised to reply when he could. And they departed. Then it was time for us to leave. Thanks to you, our bridge has finally been completed, but it's going to be awfully dull around here without you around, Mr. Tizuna said. It's okay. We'll come back to visit sometime. I beamed. You better. Inari snuffled. Aw, darn it, Inari, if you cry, then I'm gonna cry, I sniffed. I'm not gonna cry. He immediately denied. But you can go ahead and cry, big brother. Aw. I swooped in and wrapped him in a big hug. We were soon sobbing into each other's arms. Later, I announced to my ghosts, I regret nothing. Hashirama stared at me. That's good. But it's 2 in the morning. Ah, the love. I can feel it from here. Go to sleep already, child, Madara grumbled. Fine. Geez, odd and all was well. My morning was regular. I got up, brushed my teeth, took a shower, ate breakfast. I'd gotten rather good at cooking, thanks to instructions from my ghosts. Okay, it had mostly been by trial and error, with results that often made me shudder to remember, and some of the suggestions had been just plain wrong. There are just some things that you do not use oil for, Madara, but all in all, I thought I'd turned out pretty good. Anyway, I met with my teammates not long after that. Morning, Sakura, Sasuke. I may have leapt upon Sasuke to wrap my arms around him and cling to him tightly, my cheek smushed against his shoulder. He let out a strangled sound. I ignored it. Shisui was there. He stared at us for a moment before turning to my self-appointed guardians. What have you done to that kid? Hashirama gave him a puzzled look. What do you mean? Shisui waved his arms around. He's a pint-sized fuzzy orange monster of unrestrained affection. Madara snorted. Trust me, this is not because of any of our teachings. Well, Hashirama hedged. Shisui turned to stare at him. What did you do? I ignored them in favor of showering the youngest Uchiha with all of my overflowing fondness for him and the world in general. About 3 hours later, Kakashi-sensei finally showed up, spouting some nonsense about getting lost. On the road of life, Obito inserted. Without a map, Rin added. I groaned. They're a trio. Kakashi-sensei raised an eyebrow. You have accomplices, I told him. He looked delighted, cursed the man. After completing a mission, Kakashi-sensei called it a day. Sasuke decided to go home, and Sakura asked him if they, just the two of them, could, work on their teamwork. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. He stared at her a moment before saying that she was almost as bad as me, almost. Ha. I got top spot. Then he left. I think Sakura got kind of depressed by that. And then I noticed the rock. It was perfectly square, it had eye holes, and it was following me. Kind of a big clue. It was Konohamaru, old man Hokage's grandson. I think I'd kind of made a big impression on him, and that resulted in a bit of hero worship. Not that I was complaining. I adored him and his little gang. Anyway, I'd promised to play ninja with him, and Sakura asked, still depressed after being brushed off by Sasuke, what a ninja was doing playing ninja. That was when Konohamaru made a big misstep, which ended in me and him having big bumps on our heads and running for our lives from a frothing pink-haired monster. I was hoping that I didn't have a concussion from that whack she gave me when Konohamaru ran into some guy dressed in black and wearing paint on his face. The guy sneered down at the kid, hoisting him up by his collar. That hurt, you snot-nosed brat. Madara's sneer was in a league of its own. Suna sent this buffoon. What fool was made the Kazekage this time? Hashirama's expression was dark. He is threatening a child. That is unacceptable. Knock it off, Kankuro. You're gonna get it as it is, said the blonde lady next to the paint wearer. It was my fault, Sakura tried. I was fooling around. She earned my lifelong loyalty for that. But now wasn't the time to give her that soft smile that was waiting upon my lips. I focused on the guy Kankuro, she said. Who was holding on to my little buddy. Let him go. He smirked. I just want to play with him a little while we wait for a certain nuisance to get here. You're the nuisance. I gave him a nice smile. Now let him go, and I won't maim you and leave your crippled helpless body for the crows to find and feed on. They all stared at me. Shisui gave Madara an accusing look. The old Uchiha smirked. Yes, that was me. Suddenly, face paint guy jerked, reflexively letting go of Konohamaru. A stone dropped to the ground. We looked up to see Sasuke sitting in a nearby tree, casually tossing rocks in the air with one hand. That was a truly imaginative threat, Naruto. As for you guys, tell me. He turned his black eyes on the foreign shinobi. What are you doing in our village? Kankuro held his hand which trembled slightly, probably because of the stone that had hit it. He gritted his teeth. Oh, look. Another little brat. Sasuke seemed to lose interest in them, dismissing him with a, get lost. I think Sakura may have squealed at that. Fangirls, really. I felt someone tug on my sleeve and I looked down to see Konohamaru. Would you really have done what you said? He asked. I smiled at him, placing a hand on his spiky black head. Oh, yes. And more, I promised. He looked a little awed. Wow. He thought about it, then added, that other guy was still the one who actually saved me, though. I fell into a depression worthy of the first Hokage. Kankuro. Don't tell me you're planning to use Crow. Exclaimed a female voice, causing me to turn my attention back to the unfamiliar shinobi. I blinked when someone else spoke. Kankuro. Don't. I looked up to see a red-haired boy maybe my age standing on the bottom of a tree limb, incidentally the same tree Sasuke was crouching on, though not the same limb. You're a disgrace to our entire village. Wow. Harsh. Gigara. Kankuro stammered, looking nervous for some reason. They seem almost afraid of that kid, Shisui observed. Not almost, Itachi murmured. It irritates me that you'd lose control in a quarrel with children. Have you forgotten why we came here? The red-haired boy spoke flatly. But, Gaara, they started it. The kid ran into me. Wow, how old are you again, face paint guy? Shut up. Or I'll kill you. Whoa. Okay, whoa. Bit much, that, isn't it? Kankuro looked terrified. You're right, he hurried to say, I was out of line. We're sorry, okay, Gaara. The blonde pig-tailed girl tried to soothe. The redhead Gaara ignored them, looking at Sasuke. I apologize for my friends. Your friends? You mean the ones that shake in their boots when you even look at them? The boy disappeared in a whirl and appeared again on the ground, between face paint and pigtails. I know we're early, but we didn't come here to play around. I missed what Kankuro said, I swear, it won't happen again, whispered through his mind, there and gone so fast he didn't even remember it being there. Because I was too busy staring. Dude, was that red hair as soft as it looked? Because it looked seriously soft. Like even softer than the ducklings behind Sasuke's hair resembled. His impassive pale green eyes were framed in thick black, reminding me of a panda. Above his left eye, high on his forehead, was the kanji for love. Maybe we all actually have inner fangirls. If so, I'd just found mine. I suddenly realized that Sakura and the blonde pig-tailed girl had been talking. Something about a Chunin selection exam? I asked aloud. Pigtails gave a long, detailed answer that I didn't really listen to because I was staring at Red Panda Boy again. He noticed, meeting my eyes with his pale green ones. Something you want to say? Oh, could I told him, are so cute. Like, seriously adorable. I want to hug you and cuddle you and never let you go. Ah, such a relief to let it all out. Sasuke. Why are you face palming? Face paint and pigtails were gaping. Red blinked at me. You wish to hug and cuddle me? He finally asked. Why? Your adorableness is off the charts, I gushed. You're so red and fuzzy. I can't help but want to love you. Can I? You're asking if you can love me? He said slowly. I nearly exploded. He was so cute. Yes, please. Madara looked appalled. This is not how I raised you, child. Please, Madara. I do what I want. Why did I suddenly feel like a god of mischief and chaos? And have a craving for goat milk? You are very strange, Red finally said. He turned away. Temari, Kankuro. Let's go. At least he hadn't run for the hills. Maybe there was hope for me yet. I waved cheerfully. Bye. They left. I sighed and turned back to my teammates. I suddenly noticed that they were staring at me. What? Sakura especially was eyeing me oddly. You know, I never really thought about it before, but Naruto or you I mean, do you? I gave her a confused smile. What? Like boys? I blinked. Then blinked again. What? She flushed red. Will you just answer me? Did I? I thought about it. Then I shrugged. I dunno. What do you mean, you don't know? She demanded. I held up my hands. Exactly what I said. I dunno. I guess I'm just not at that age yet. For instance, I pointed. I think Sasuke's pretty good looking, but I nodded at her. I also think you're very pretty. I grinned toothily. You're both cute to me. Her eyes were wide, cheeks nearly as pink as her hair. Finally, she said, you're actually kind of cool, Naruto. I'm sure I looked pleased, if slightly confused. Wow, thanks. Hashirama was hanging on to Madara. Our-child, Madara, he moaned. Our-child is bi-curious. And he's going to grow up sometime. He's going to want girlfriends or boyfriends. What do we do? Can we lock him up somewhere and throw away the key? Can we? He begged. Get off me, Madara snapped. And he's not our child. I don't care who he dates. As to locking him up, he sneered. You can lock him up just as soon as you get the physicality for it. Now get off. Hashirama slid off the old wild-haired Uchiha, a black cloud of depression hanging over his slumped form. Get over it. Madara had no sympathy for him. We were at a bridge, leaning against the railing. Sakura was standing on one side of me while Sasuke stood on the other, unperturbed by the little conversation earlier involving my sexual inclinations, unflappable and cool as always. Hey, guys, I heard Obito call, we're back. Morning, guys, came Kakashi-sensei's voice. Today, I wandered a bit from the path of life. Rin sighed, shaking her head sadly. Once again without a map. Obito nodded sympathetically. And he never stops for directions. I'm going to start calling you the Lazy Gang, I told them. Obito looked delighted. Really? We get a name? Rin looked interested. The Lazy Gang. How about the Tiresome Trio? The Tedious Triad? The Irksome Threesome? Obito added. The Trying Trinity? I groaned. What have I done? I've created a pair of monsters. What's going on? Sakura asked curiously. Obito and Rin are giving me suggestions on what to call them, I explained. I could tell Kakashi-sensei was smirking, even behind his mask. The bothersome band. I gave him a withering look. Not you two. He coughed a laugh. Right, in any case we have other business here. Now, this may surprise you, it certainly surprised me, but I've recommended you three for the Chunin selection exam. Say what? Sakura sputtered. Really? I asked, interested. HN. I'm sure you can guess who that was. You'll have to fill out these applications. He handed one to each of us. I took mine, looking it over. You realize this is the perfect opportunity to prove yourself to the village, child. Madara looked down at me. Not that you should care what they think. He heaved a sigh. But despite that, you persist in doing so. I gave him a quick smile. No worries. I got this. You had better, with an Uchiha and a Senju to help train you. I felt a thrill of delight. You're gonna train me? Hashirama smiled cheerfully, reaching down to ruffle my hair. Of course. We will give you pointers. You will no doubt be actually trained by someone else, someone living, but that does mean we cannot give you a tip occasionally. Awesome. I turned to beam at my team. Let's do this. The next morning, I ran to meet my teammates. Hey, Sasuke, Sakura, I greeted them cheerfully. Sakura smiled weakly. Hi. I paused to frown at her. What's wrong? Nothing, she denied. Clearly something is. What is it? I persisted. It's nothing. I'm fine. I dropped it for the moment but let my disbelief show through. I'd ask again later. We got to the ninja academy just in time to hear some kid guarding the door say, besides that, Chunin are cell commanders. They lead their units. The responsibilities for failed missions and dead shinobi rest firmly on their shoulders. He snorted. And you little punks have the nerve to apply. He went on, but I was distracted. The door the two were guarding said 301, but there was something wrong about that. Madara scoffed. Think about it, child. Or is it too much for your feeble brain? Can you not count? I stared at him, then held up my hands, pointedly using my fingers to do so. Hashirama muffled a laugh. The old Uchiha's mouth tipped up slightly. Cheeky brat. What could I say? Backtalk wasn't merely a hobby to me. It was practically a profession. I brought my attention back to hear Sakura saying, of course I noticed it. Obviously, we're still on the second floor. Ooh. The sign on the door blurred before coming back into focus with the numbers 201. Hey, not bad. But just seeing through it isn't the spiky-haired kid threw a kick at Sasuke. Enough. Sasuke quickly moved to block the kick with his own leg, but before they could meet, high leg. I'm leg. The kid in the green jumpsuit with the bowl cut and the weird eyelashes was there, grabbing their ankles and holding them in place. After a pause, he let them go, causing the spiky-haired kid to slump to the floor. Bowl cut then blew out a breath. Hey, a long-haired boy with wide eyes approached. That's not what we agreed. You're the one who insisted we shouldn't draw attention to ourselves. But Bowl cut glanced at Sakura, his cheeks flushing. Oh, he's got a crush. Though, wasn't it kinda soon for that? They hadn't even spoken to each other. Of course, I could talk. Oh, Red Panda, you slay me with your cuteness. Pay attention, Madara commanded, giving me a hard tap on the head. Oh, I whined, rubbing the place he tapped. Your love is tough. It was then that the bowl cut kid walked right up to Sakura. Hi. My name is Rock Lee. You're Sakura, aren't you? Huh? How did he know that? Sasuke spoke her name, Hashirama reminded me. Oh. Right. Well, one mean, Rock Lee asked if Sakura would go out on a date with him and then he gave a thumbs up and a grin that gleamed. No way. You're way out of hand. Instant rejection. He slumped. I winced and patted him on the back. It's okay, bowl cut guy, I'm sure you'll find someone to love you for your eyelashes and your sparkles. He seemed to perk up. I sparkle. Like a jumpsuit wearing diamond, I assured him. He straightened and gave me one of those shiny smiles that was almost too bright to look at. In the meantime, I said, do you want to be in my harem? Hashirama and Sakura choked. Not this again, Madara muttered. Bowl cut guy's abundant brow furrowed. What is a harem? It's a group of people that I choose to befriend and protect because I like them, I explained. At least, that was what my harem would be to me. Though I would have fun not explaining that to other people. Ah. I see. He nodded. In that case, I would be honored to join this prestigious group of yours. I grinned toothily. Cool. I'm Uzumaki Naruto, by the way. Rock Lee. And thus, my harem gained a new member, unknowing of the scandal that would no doubt incur. I turned to my pink-haired teammate. Hey, Sakura, I just realized I haven't asked you if you want to join, too. Her mouth dropped open. I blinked at her with my big blue eyes. She closed her mouth and appeared to actually be considering it. Finally, she shrugged. Was that a glint of defiance in her eye? Why not? Indeed it was. I was delighted. Today, my teammates and random people I just like for some reason, tomorrow, the world. Madara let out a low chuckle. That look on your face does not bode well for the world, child. Wow. How did he know? But that was Uchiha Madara for you. Hashirama winced. Do you realize you both have identical grins on your faces? You're catching, Maddie, I remarked. Don't call me that. Did you just compare Madara to a disease? Hashirama asked, amused. That, or fungus? After that, my new friend Lee confronted Sasuke, wanting a fight, and Sasuke was actually about to lost before we met Lee's teacher, Mido Guy, who had the same haircut, the same green jumpsuit, and even bigger eyebrows than his student. He told us that he was Kakashi-sensei's arch-rival, probably because he wouldn't leave him alone. So then Lee left, and Sasuke, well, he didn't look too good. But then a second later he regained his usual smirk, which deepened, and he said something about things getting interesting. Sakura and I agreed. Anyway, we finally made it to room 301. Kakashi-sensei was waiting for us there, and he explained about how it was up to each of us whether or not to apply so that we wouldn't pressure each other into coming. Then he told us, but you're all here because you want to be. And I'm very, very proud of you. Oh, Obito gushed. My beam may or may not have rivaled the sun's. Then he told us to get in there. So, after Obito and Rin wished us luck, we did. We entered the room and immediately felt the charged atmosphere. There were a lot of people there, far more than we'd been expecting. Suddenly, a girl with long pale blonde hair and a ponytail jumped on Sasuke, wrapping her arms around his neck to hang off him. Sasuke. Where have you been, cutie? Sasuke's expression was one of extreme aggravation. I may have giggled. That could be the reason he shot a glare at me. That, or I just annoyed him solely by simply existing. The latter was looking more than likely when I gave him a toothy grin in return, ignoring the yelling going on between Sakura and her frenemy, Ino. "Why don't you three save yourselves the embarrassment of flunking this test?" Came a bored male voice. "Go die, okay? Shikamaru." I immediately focused all my attention on him. "Chaoji. Good, you're here. I want to ask you something." The Nara, who was far too skinny, in my opinion, eyed me warily. "What is it? Do you want to be in my harem?" There was a pause. Sasuke was staring at me. Had I not mentioned the small matter of my harem to him? Oops. Taoji appeared unruffled by my question, chewing on the chips he'd brought. "You're asking me to?" "Yeah." He munched thoughtfully. "Will there be food?" I opened my mouth, then paused. Sure, so long as I can afford it." He shrugged. "Okay." I gave him a thumbs up and a grin. "Cool. What about you, Shikamaru?" "Ino. I already joined," Sakura said, a little smugly. "You did what?" Ino gasped, then narrowed her eyes. "Fine. Count me in." "Awesome." I looked expectantly at the last one. Shikamaru heaved a sigh. "Whatever. I'll just count that as a yes, shall I?" "Splendid." I beamed at them. "Hey. There you are," said someone else. I blinked. It was teammate. The female of the group gave a small, shy smile. "Looks like the gang's all here." Kiba sneered. "Including you, unfortunately," muttered Shikamaru. Shino said nothing. He was a male of few words. "Hey, guys. Perfect timing. Do you want to join my harem?" That, clearly, had not been expected. What?" Kiba sputtered. "My harem," I repeated. "You want to join?" "Why would I want to do that?" He yelped. "What about you, then, Hinata?" She flushed deep red. "Me, and Naruto-kun. Yes, please." I gushed. "You're so cute." I didn't know it was possible for her face to get any redder, but apparently it was. I looked at her expectantly. I would love to, and Naruto-kun." Her eyes went wide and she covered her mouth as if she hadn't realized she would say that until the words were out. I beamed at her. "You're so adorable." She looked on the verge of hyperventilating. "I as well?" Shino asked curiously. He appeared to consider. "Very well." I looked again at Kiba. "No way." He waved his hands furiously. "Never." But I was distracted. "Akamaru, I could." "Adorable as ever, I see. Let me love you, I stepped forward to bury my hands in his fur. "Hello, beautiful boy." Kiba had gone completely red but stayed still so that I could pet the dog settled on his head. "Would you guys do us all a favor and just shut up?" I turned my head to see a young man with white hair and glasses standing there, hand placed on his hip. "You three gangs of would-be hotshots are all genin, right? Kids barely out of the local academy. All wet behind the ears and runny-nosed. You. This isn't a school field trip, you know. Who the heck do you think you are?" Ino growled. He smirked. "Name's Kabuto." "So what? You kids need to open your eyes." "Oh?" "I had the impression we already had," I remarked. "Unless, of course, I am dreaming and you are simply a particularly unpleasant apparition conjured by my sleeping mind." He blinked. "Looks like your words were too big for him to understand, child," Madara snarked. "You will have to dumb it down for this one." Hashirama opened his mouth, then sighed and raised his hands. "I give up. I can't stop you from ganging up on people, why try?" "Why indeed," Madara said unsympathetically. The young man, Kabuto, appeared to recover, sneering at us. "Just look around." We did so. I honestly had no idea whether I'd ever been on the receiving end of so many glares. Well, not like I hadn't handled worse. Zabuza's death glare had been in a league of its own, far above these lowly squinters. "Who's Zabuza?" Kiba asked, confused. "Oops. Did I said that out loud?" "Zabuza? Mamachi Zabuza? The demon of the mist?" Kabuto gave me an intense look. "Indeed I did. Yeah. We met him because our C rank went to hell. We beat him up a little, he beat us up a lot, and then we all became friends, or at least, slightly approachable acquaintances." Kabuto drew back, looking thoughtful. "Interesting. Who are you talking about?" Kiba said, more loudly. Sakura explained, and I tuned them out. "You're starting a harem?" Sasuke murmured, leaning close so that I could hear him. "Well, technically, I've already started it. I've got so many members already," I marveled, for some reason a little wistfully. He hummed thoughtfully. "You got room for one more?" I turned my head to look at him, startled. "Really?" I grinned, delighted. He pulled back, a little embarrassed. "Don't look so excited, dope. I just asked if you had space for more people." "Of course I do. I always will." Why did that sound like a promise? My attention was drawn back to Kabuto, who had taken out a deck of cards, shinobi skill cards, he called them. Sasuke, too focused on him, asking if he had dossiers for each individual applicant. He asked for Gara, Red Panda. And Lee, Kageaki. They looked at me oddly for my nicknames. I didn't care. I was very fond of those nicknames. After a moment, Kabuto continued with his lecture and ended with saying that the test was pitiless. Well, it would be a bit unusual if it was sentient, I responded. Again with the weird looks. Sasuke shook his head. Dope. Yes, my prince of ducks. I replied. He paused. Prince of what? It's your hair. I just can't see it as any other shape than a duck's behind. He stared at me. I'm perfectly sane. For some reason, they seemed to doubt that. Well, I mentally huffed, what do they know? Nothing, absolutely nothing, my mind answered. Exactly. See. At least someone's on my side. Even if it's myself. In fact, it would be kinda sad if I wasn't. The voice in my head said, you're kinda insane, aren't you? Hey. Where's the vote of confidence? Are you talking to yourself again, child? Madara asked deadpan. No, I said guiltily. And even if I was, it's perfectly normal. You realize this is doing you no favors in convincing others of your sanity. I risked a glance. Yep. They were staring at me. Ah well, fudge nuts. After Kabuto got kinda beaten up by some sound guys, the proctors came. The chief examiner of the first part of the exam, Marino Ibiki, didn't allow Sound to continue carrying on, but I don't think he really cared about Kabuto's pain, either. Anyway, Ibiki was a big, scarred, scary guy. I liked him. So, we all got seated down for the paper test. Our places were assigned. I got 53, next to my adorable little brunette Hyuga harem girl. I beamed at her. Good luck, Hinata-chan. You probably won't need it since you're so brilliant, but I wish you luck all the same. She blushed. Thank you, and Naruto-kun. Why you, too. Let's do our best. I gave her a toothy grin. Right on. I looked down at my sheet. Beside me, Hashirama peered over my shoulder. My, that's a hard one. These are for Genin. They're not pulling their punches, Madara remarked with a sharp smile. I got the feeling he approved of their pitilessness. He would. Indeed not. Would you like me to help you, Naruto? Please, I murmured. It went on like that. I was glad I had my ghosts, as without them, I probably couldn't have answered a single one. I also noticed Itachi hovering at Sasuke's shoulder, no doubt wanting to help him, but unable to do so. And then it was time for the 10th question. Iki said that he would be adding another rule. First, we would choose whether or not to accept that 10th question. Choose. Sputtered the blonde pig-tailed girl we'd run into earlier with Red Panda-chan. What happens if someone doesn't accept the question? Obviously, they would fail. Along with the rest of their team. And also, apparently, if we answered and got it wrong, we would never be permitted to apply for the Journeyman Ninja exams ever again. Yeesh. At that, Kiba exploded. You can't be serious. That's ridiculous. There are ninja here who have sat for the Chunin exams more than once already. We know there are. Iki gave a low chuckle. Just your rotten luck. I wasn't making the rules in past years. I am now. Wow. So assertive, Ibi. Tell us more. He did. He encouraged us to reject the question now and reapply next year and the year after that. Then it began. Those who would choose not to accept, he said, should raise their hands. After a hesitation, the guy next to me did so, then the guy behind me. I wonder if he's a plant, Madara mused. After all, like sheep, lead one and the rest will follow. Hashirama frowned at him. They are not sheep, Madara. I see no difference. Does that mean I'm your little lambkin, Maddie? I asked innocently. No, he said flatly. Oh, but you'll always be my big, strong ram, Maddie. I said don't call me that. I didn't listen. Big Boss Bicky noticed my preoccupation. Something you'd like to say, number 53. I blinked and frowned at him. Well, certainly not my rejection. Dude, if I can't take that question this year, what makes me think I could take it the next? And why shouldn't I take it now? Fear. I laughed. Good God, if I'm afraid of a simple question, then what on earth am I even doing here? I thought about it, then added, by here I mean this exam, not Earth. I'm not philosophical like that. The chief examiner stared at me thoughtfully. Finally, he said, I'll ask you one last time. This is a decision that will affect the rest of your life. Quit now while you still have the chance. I smiled. Still have the chance to quit. Great shinobi I'll make if I take it. I'm pretty sure I won't have it when I'm fighting an enemy ninja. I mean, if I'm like, dude, this sucks, I quit the next I know, I'll have quit, alright. Like, quit life. I nodded and sat back, satisfied. So, yeah. Think I'll pass that chance by. No one spoke up to quit after that. Ibiki looked around, then sighed, grinned ruefully. Good call. So, everyone who is still here you've just passed the first test. I would have cheered, except I was distracted by how adorable that grin made him. Suddenly, he seemed like a big, scarred bear, and I really wanted to hug him. What can I say? I'm easy like that. So, anyways, apparently there was no 10th question beyond the whole accept or reject thing. The goal was to test our skills at spying. Which Madara had not bothered to inform me of, thank you very much. The old Ichi had just smirked. I thought it was obvious. And I like seeing you suffer. Wow. Madara's a sadist, I mused. Who knew? Oh, wait. Everyone did. Then my attention was brought back to Ibiki when he moved to remove, his hit I-8, which covered his whole head. When he did take it off, there were gasps. His head was horrifically scarred with long slash marks, severe burns, actual holes where presumably screws were used. It was an example of what could happen where being caught in an act of espionage could cost you more than your life. I was flooded by compassion. It filled me, made my breath hitch. I wanted nothing more than to take him somewhere safe and protect him, allow nothing to ever hurt him or anyone. So much again. I felt such a strong need to protect everyone and anyone at all, that I think I was shaking. Naruto? Hashirama asked, concerned. Madara eyed me. It's nothing to worry about, Hashirama. Just his protective instincts coming into play. He is worse than a mother bear with her cub. The entire world is my cub. So perhaps he was right there. Then Naruto Hinata asked tentatively. I gave her a reassuring smile. Don't worry. I just want to squish him to me and guard him fiercely from harm. I knew if Kiba was near enough to hear me, he'd say, same as usual, then. Hinata nodded in understanding. My friends are so used to me already. I focused again when Blonde Pigtails said, but what was the deal with the 10th question? Ibiki tightened the hit I-8 on his head again and smiled all. The 10th question was the real first test on the exam. He went on to explain it. I sat there and looked attentive and maybe a little adoring a little. Scoff. Finally, he ended with, you've passed the first hurdle. Part 1 of the Chunin selection exam is now concluded. I'll pray you fight the good fight. Again with a smile. You're such a good guy, Mr. Ibiki. I gushed. And so cute. Will you? Hiba was suddenly there, squishing my mouth with his hand. He laughed nervously. Sorry Mr. Ibiki, sir. Naruto's a little weird in the head. He turned and hissed at me, you will not ask the chief examiner to be in your harem. The FFA wuna, I slurred. No. There is no way. He was suddenly cut off by the sound of breaking glass as something crashed through the window. There was a thunking sound as a pair of kunai were thrown, stabbing into the ceiling. A big dark sheet was attached to them, holding it up. It read newly arrived second chief examination officer. The rest was obscured by the woman with spiky dark hair standing in front of it. None of you are in any position to celebrate. She called, throwing out a hand. I am the second chief examination officer, Mitarashi Anko. Time's a wasting, people, let's go. She dramatically raised her fist into the air. Follow me. There was a pause. You could practically hear the crickets chirping. You didn't tell me you have a sister, Naruto, Kiba muttered to me. Suddenly she exclaimed, 78 of you are still here. She turning to our first examination officer. Ibiki. You passed 28 teams. Obviously you went too easy on them. I liked her. We made our way to training ground 44. Also known as the Forest of Death, which I would now be calling the Forest of Fun. I spotted Gaara among the students and gave him a toothy grin and a wave. He and his team gave me an odd look, but I didn't mind. I was always getting those. It looks like a pretty creepy place, Sakura said with trepidation. What? Oh, yeah. The training ground. Anko Jisei chuckled darkly. You're about to find out firsthand why they call this the Forest of Death. Madara looked amused. As did the ghost standing beside the examiner. He was tall and extremely pale, with long black hair and deeply green eyes. He had a hand settled on his hip and he was smirking. All in all, he reminded me of a snake. He noticed me watching and winked at me. I grinned. Something funny, kid? Questioned Anko Jisei. Yup, I answered happily. Well. Feeling pretty cocky, are you? Abruptly, a kunai slid into her hand from somewhere and she threw it. It skimmed my cheek as it passed by, drawing blood. Then, suddenly, she was behind me. Your kind are always the first to go, you know. She leaned close, licking the blood on my cheek. Spilling all that rich, red, lovely, luscious blood. That's not a drastic reaction at all, is it? Then she jerked and I heard a male voice behind me saying, your kunai knife, I believe you dropped it. Gee, thanks, Anko Jisei responded. I risked a peek back and saw a guy using an insanely long tongue to hand her the kunai she'd thrown. She was holding another, though, against his tongue. Don't just stand behind me, radiating bloodlust unless you're in a hurry to die. She took the kunai from him. The green-eyed ghost had moved to stand beside Tongue Guy. They were rather similar, I noticed, in the midst of slight hysteria. Both with long black hair and pale skin. Also the same height. The same body type too, from what I could see, long-limbed and slender. They even had the same smirk. Were they brothers or something? Then the second exam was starting. But before that, we were handed consent forms to get all the details covered before the first deaths occurred. Thank you, Madam Reassurance. It does my heart well to know that we're in such good hands. Ankojise handed me the forms to take my own, then passed them over. Then she explained about the test, a no-holds-barred survival test. She displayed a scroll showing the topography of the training ground. Training ground number 44 was bordered by a circular perimeter, interrupted at regular intervals by 44 locked gates. There were forests and a river, and in the center was a tower about 10 kilometers from those gates. Within the confines of that carefully delineated area, we were going to undergo the survival test. Each team would be given a scroll, either with the kanji for heaven or earth on it. Our goal was to get the opposite of what we'd gotten while holding on to our own, then take them both to the tower at the center. We had 5 days to complete the exam. From Ankojise, we got one piece of advice: stay alive. Snake Gayakre cackled. If you can. Geesh. Even Snake Gayakre was in on it. We got our scroll and were led to our respective gate by a proctor. Once inside, I turned and gave my teammates a grin. We ready, gang? Then let's go. And thus, we set off towards hope and the future. In the distance, someone was screaming. I got eaten by a snake. Okay, first let me explain. I'd wandered off to the non-existent bathroom. It was bound to happen in a forest without any facilities. I was then promptly knocked out. I was probably only unconscious for a few minutes, but when I woke, I found myself tied up with a bit of rope. You can bet Madara sneered and scolded me for that. A while later, Sasuke leaped over a nearby tree, chasing some guy, probably an enemy ninja and the person who tied me up. I called out to him, Sasuke, not the enemy ninja, and he threw a kunai, which cut the rope and came very close to cutting me, too. It didn't, though. That Sasuke, almost scarily accurate with his aim. Long story short. After getting hit by a letter bomb, and after I returned the kunai knife he'd so generously freed me with, he got up close and personal with the enemy ninja me, and stabbed him with it. My only thought was, ouch. After that, there was a low conversation in which we decided to use a secret password. I suggested swordfish. Much to my disappointment, we, and by we I mean they, decided on an insanely, frustratingly, outrageously long poem. Or maybe it just seemed insane, frustrating, and outrageous to me. I would never remember it, but I guess Sasuke knew that, so if a ninja me was listening and tried to imitate me again, he would make the mistake of actually quoting the poem accurately. So that was smart. Anyway, it wasn't long, it was actually very soon that we were separated. I'd been knocked far away, into a tree. That was when the snake came in. It was huge. Bigger than some of the trees in that forest. Man, it was a good thing snakes eat things whole. Otherwise I would have been in real trouble. Anyway, I escaped. Kinda exploded it. I felt sorta bad about that, but I had to get back to my team, so I had no time to dig a grave and drag all the parts to it. I know what you're thinking you. Yeah. It's okay, I felt the same. Just ugh. But that was no time to be squeamish. When I made my way back to my friends, I found them being attacked by that weird long-haired guy with the insanely long tongue. Naruto to the rescue. But then Sasuke snapped that the guy was way out of our league. What got me kinda angry was the ninja me complimenting me on my stunning defeat of the giant snake. Gee, thanks, guy. I moved, really I am. Yeah, right. That guy was the snake. Seriously, he really reminded me of one. He had this long twisting body, all wrapped around a tree. Where was I? Oh, yes. His compliments. I replied, why don't you go pick on someone your own size, Slinky? My wit was stunning in its stupidity, I mean, simplicity. Careful, child, Madara warned. You should be cautious with this one, Hashirama agreed. Sasuke ignored me to take out the heaven scroll we had. He held it up. If it's our scroll you want, come and get it. Just take it and go. Sasuke. What the heck? I questioned. Slinky also ignored me, praising Sasuke on obviously being a natural-born prey and instinctively knowing that his only hope lies in the chance of distracting the predator by some tastier bait. Creepy much, guy. Sasuke threw the scroll to him. Or he tried. I jumped to catch it, landing on the tree limb he was standing on. Stay out of this. He snapped. You'll ruin everything. I turned to him and slapped a hand to his cheek. Kami, he was looking haggard. I stared hard into his dark eyes, the Sharingan nowhere in sight. Sasuke. Focus. Look at me. He blinked as if he hadn't registered what I'd said. Then, finally, his eyes focused on mine. You're afraid. You're not thinking straight. I'm not sure you ever quite think straight, but you're even worse at it now. So listen to me. My voice was low. Even if you give him the scroll there is no guarantee that he will just take it and leave. None at all. And judging from the way he's letting me monologue, he's in no hurry. He's got time to kill. Literally. My eyes softened. And besides, if you give him that scroll, how weak will you feel? How much will you loathe yourself? You're so young, Sasuke. I know, you're strong for your age, and you're a genius, but you're still so young. I don't want you hating yourself just yet. I cracked a grin and poked him in the forehead. He stood there, appearing shocked. I blinked at him, thinking back, and realized I'd pulled an Itachi with that poke. Oh, well. There was the sound of mocking laughter. Oh, Naruto, how ironic. And you're right. It's ironic that I was right. Why bargain when I can simply kill you and take the scroll? Oh, what the cheese, man. Wind started swirling around Slinky as he stated, art of the familiar spirit. And suddenly he was standing on the head of a giant snake, even bigger than the one I'd blown up, RIP. Out of nowhere, but not really, its tail snapped out and hit me and the tree limb I'd been standing on. That hurt. Ouch. Plus, as I fell, I slammed into part of the tree. Double ouch. Then Slinky decided not to take chances and commanded Miss Utbiggers to eat me. I was like, again. But also, I felt something, maybe something powerful, rising in me. I threw my fist, hitting the snake, sorry Biggers, with more force than I'd have expected had I been paying attention. Then Slinky blew out a breath and it was like Sasuke's fire style, except with air. I was blown back, hitting a tree, again. But I was still conscious, enough to fling myself in front of Sasuke when the snake went after him at Slinky's command. Surprisingly, I managed to hold it back, except I didn't have it in me to be surprised at the moment. I was trembling a little with the strain of keeping Miss Utbiggers at bay and the strain of even standing. Sasuke, I was panting. Sasuke, you can't just stay still, that move, Sasuke, damn it, ouchie, wake up. He jolted. Thank God, I thought. Except it was a short-lived relief because I was suddenly being pulled up and dangled in front of Slinky by his tongue. You. He began making signs with his hands as he talked. The brat of 9 tails is still alive and kicking. He continued speaking about me as if I wasn't actually there, but I wasn't really thinking because abruptly Slinky drove his hand into my stomach. Child. Naruto. I heard Madara shout over Hashirama's yell. But then, of course, there was darkness. Presumably because I was unconscious. Well, pretzel sticks. I woke up with a jolt. It was a very unpleasant jolt. At last, Madara complained. Hashirama smiled down at me. I'm glad to see you're up, Naruto. Yeah? Distracted, I blinked up at Choji and Shikamaru, who were looking down at me. What's up, harem bros? Wait, Slinky. I shot up, looking frantically for my teammates, only to spot them sitting a little away. Slinky was gone. Team 10 was there, though, along with an unconscious Lee. He was being supported by Ino. I hesitantly walked over to my teammates. Sakura. Sasuke. Sakura glanced up. Oh, you're awake, Naruto. I frowned. What happened? I was suddenly distracted. Whoa, wait, your hair. Oh, this. She patted her newly shorn pink locks. I wanted to update my image. A new look. She said with a grin. I knelt beside them, watching her with concern. She waved her hand. It's fine. Long hair is fun, but it's so high maintenance. Well. Alright. I reached out, tugging a bit on the uneven strands. It looks good. But you're cute anyway, so of course it does. I flashed a grin. She laughed and pushed at my shoulder. Good. If she could do that, she would be fine. I sobered again. But what happened while I was out? Shikamaru and Choji had wandered over, and the young Nara sighed. Explanations are so tedious. Yeah, get on with it, harem bro. He gave me a look that clearly said, do not call me harem bro. It was then that Lee's teammate, Tenten, showed up. She woke Lee up by grabbing onto him and shaking him until he blinked open his eyes. After talking a bit, he looked over at us. Looked back at Tenten, said something that made her yell at him, and slumped to the ground. Ah, Lee. I walked over and crouched next to him, giving him a smile. Hey Kageaki. I reached out and ruffled his hair. Thanks for helping us out. He was pretty roughed up, but he beamed at me and gave me a thumbs up. Yosh, Naruto. It was no trouble at all. His face suddenly fell. It was Sasuke who defeated the Otanin, though. They beat me senseless and I did not turn out to be much help. Not at all. Lee, who knows what might have happened if you hadn't been there? I would be in much worse shape than I am, Sakura told him in a slightly scolding tone before softening and smiling shyly. Besides, I want to thank you. Because of your help, I've managed to make some kind of breakthrough. My skills have been taken to a whole new level. Lee's eyes filled with tears of youth. I am not worthy. I laughed and hugged him to me, tousling his hair even more. After a while, he calmed down. Sniffling, he looked up at my pink-haired teammate. Sakura, the fighting lotus of Konoha village will grow and flower again. Before we meet again, I will have become a stronger man. I swear it. Sakura smiled down at him. Yeah. I'm glad you're in my harem, Lee, I said sincerely. He beamed at me while Tenten choked on her spit. Oops. After that, Ino offered to cut Sakura's hair for her, to even up the ends. They had a muttered conversation in which Sakura appeared quite smug and Ino indignant. It was probably about Sasuke then. I wandered over to my black-haired teammate and frowned at him. "Are you okay?" He glanced at me. "Fine. Why wouldn't I be?" "Oh, I dunno," I drawled. "Let me think about it a bit and when I have the answer, I'll get back to you." He snorted. "So, why don't you give me a real answer now?" He turned away. "I told you. I'm fine." "Wow. Did you just dismiss me, bro?" I stepped up beside him. "But, seriously, Aoji. Are you okay?" He frowned at me. "Why do you call me that? Aoji? It's short for Prince of Ducks, remember? My Aoji a hero." I smiled. "I call Gara Red Panda and Lee Kageaki. I also named that creepy snake guy Slinky and his snake Misut Biggers. Why shouldn't I call you something, too?" He paused and gave me an odd look. "You named the snake?" I grinned at him. "Why not?" After a moment he snorted and shook his head. "Only you." And just like that, everything was alright. Sorta. Okay, mostly alright. Yeah. Later, we'd separated from Team 10 and come to think of it, what number was Lee's team? I dunno. Anyway, we'd traveled a while and found a river where we could catch fish. I needed a bath anyways, so I threw off my sweatsuit and, clad only in a pair of boxers and an undershirt, jumped right in. Sadly, my fish-catching skills were sorely lacking and Sasuke ended up catching most, of the fish. Sakura'd set up sticks and kindling, so Sasuke used a fireball to set it alight. It had been 4 days since the start of the exam. There wasn't much more time left. Less than 26 hours. As we dug in, Sakura said, "I'm worried that there might not be any more heaven scrolls left." "Oh, yeah. I'd been told that Slinky had burned our heaven scroll, so now we only had an earth." Sasuke concluded that the next enemy we met could possibly be our last chance. After a moment of silence, he got up and began walking away. "I'm going to go get some water." I opened my mouth to say that I would go with him, but then closed it again with a glance in Sakura's direction. Sasuke could handle himself fine, but Sakura as she was now. I grimaced and settled back. Then I realized that there was a river right near us. Had he just not wanted water that had fish in it? But where would he get water like that? What the cheeses? It was a little while later that Kabuto, white hair, glasses, weird feel about him, showed up, looking all friendly and shit as Obito would probably say. Then, a few minutes later, Sasuke came back. Without water, might I add. Kabuto said that he'd gotten separated from his team and he wasn't after our scroll, as he already had a set. So Sasuke said, "Fight me." Oh. Yeah. Our time was almost up. Still. I got a weird feeling about him. "Sasuke," I murmured warningly. "There's no other way. Challenging him is the only way we'll be out of this forest in time to pass the test." "That's a lie." We stared at him. He smirked. "Ah, yes. He had us." He suggested that we move while we discussed it. We agreed, and so we were leaping quickly through the forest. An ambush. Near the tower. Though there were probably some who'd already had the same thought. And then we were in view of the tower. We started walking. After who knows how long, Madara finally seemed to tire of our slow progress. "Child, does that tower seem to be getting closer to you?" I blinked at him and directed my gaze over, guessing, no. My teammates and our maybe ally looked at me. "No. And do you think this is natural, child?" "No. No. So, what is this?" I frowned thoughtfully. "Well, unless someone created some kind of space-time jutsu or something, probably a genjutsu." "Very good." This was said somewhat sarcastically. "You did very well, Naruto." "Ignore Madara, he's simply being grumpy," Hashirama advised me. I grinned at him. "I always do, and he always is." "Who are you speaking to, Naruto?" Kabuto questioned. I turned my gaze on him. "My ghosts." "Your ghosts?" "Yes. Madara and Hashirama." I didn't mention the nun that was following him around, a young woman with a pretty face, sorta sad but also kind. His gaze sharpened. "Uchiha Madara and the first Hokage. The very same. Though don't believe everything you hear," I added. "Madara is a grumpy old man and Hashirama likes to gamble, except he's terrible at it and when they're together, which is almost always, they bicker like an old married couple. It's great fun to watch." "I see." Sasuke made a noise in his throat. "He's insane. Just go with it." "Wow. Thanks for that. Don't take this the wrong way, Aoji, but I hope you drown in that duck pond you inevitably dwell in." My ghost snickered. "Well," Hashirama snickered. Madara's lip twitched, which was snickering for other people. Sakura noticed Kabuto's confused expression and stated, "Don't ask." He didn't. Instead, he said, "The Jinjutsu." I blinked. "Oh. Right. That. Yes. That," Madara mocked. "Madara's a mean old man," I muttered, letting out an eep when he glared at me. I shuffled closer to Sasuke. "You know, just in case." It wasn't like I was deeply terrified or anything. It just paid to be prepared. Right. I'm glad you agree with all the lies I just spouted." So, we beat those ambushers and got a heaven scroll, yay, for our troubles, and finally got to the tower. After that, Kabuto reunited with his teammates again and wished us luck. The smile I gave him at that moment was returned. I commented, you know, you're really adorable when you smile like that. He blinked, startled, and a little weirded out. Madara rolled his eyes. Not another one. Hashirama shook his head. You're becoming quite the charmer, Naruto. I shrugged. I tells him like I sees him, Mads. Ignoring the sudden spike of killer intent, my team and I went on and entered the tower. In there, on the wall, was a poem by the third Hokage. If qualities of heaven are your desire, acquire wisdom and knowledge to take your mind higher. If earthly qualities are what you lack, train your body in the fields and prepare to attack. When both heaven and earth are open together, the path of peril will revert to the righteous path forever. This is the secret way that guides us on from this place today. I admired it for a moment, as it was really quite nice. Little obvious, though, I commented. I mean, when both heaven and earth are open together. Hint, hint. Madara grunted. Just get on with it, child. Fine, fine. We opened the scrolls, which then began to smoke. Quickly, we tossed them away. Then, glory, hallelujah, from out of the smoke appeared Iruka-sensei. Are you God? I asked, awed. Everyone gave me an odd look except for Madara, who was an expressionless dastard. Even Hashirama did, when he should have been used to me by now. So, yeah. We passed the second exam. This calls for a celebration, Iruka-sensei said, smiling. I wish I could take you out for ramen at Ichiraku. I leaped at him, wrapping my limbs around him. That's okay. We passed, Iruka-sensei. I smushed my face into his vest, holding him tight. Madara scoffed, muttering, try for a little dignity, won't you, child? Dignity? What's that? Is it tasty? You're tasty, my mind retorted. Your face is tasty. What the heck? What, are you a cannibal now? Stop conversing with yourself and focus, child, Madara reminded me. Right. Iruka-sensei was saying hesitantly, about the third exam, don't overdo things. Especially you, Naruto. I worry about you. I detached from him to look up and smile. You don't need to, Iruka-sensei. I'll be fine. I'm not weak, and I've got Hashirama and Madara and Sakura and Sasuke and Kakashi-sensei. They make me all the stronger just by existing. Besides, I'm a shinobi now. You knew I'd have to leave the nest sooner or later, maybe spraining my wings along the way, but never breaking them. Whoever said chickens couldn't fly? Shut your mouth, Madara, that was rhetorical. I nodded, satisfied. Chickens? Iruka-sensei asked, bemused. Yeah. I figured, if Sasuke's a duck, then I'm a chicken. The scarred man shook his head, chuckling, and reached out to ruffle my hair. Alright. Come on, then, chicken. I grinned. K. I linked my arm with Sakura's, then my other with Sasuke's when he pushed himself to his feet. I felt him lean against me more heavily than he probably meant to, but I didn't show it. I flashed another grin. Let's go, team. We were led to a large room in which the third Hokage, along with the proctors and our sensei were waiting. And by we I mean all of the surviving genin. So, the Hokage began to talk. And oh, Kami, did he talk. Like, so much. I tried to listen, honestly I did. But I only became aware that I'd zoned off when I snapped back to attention and realized I couldn't remember a thing the old man had said. I'd ask one of my friends later. Anyway, some guy named Gekko Malfoy. Wait, Malfoy, what the heck? His name was Gekko Hate. I didn't even know anyone named Malfoy. And what kind of name was that, anyway? I puzzled over that for a minute before dismissing it and focusing on the proctor. Geez, he looked like he really needed some sleep. He was coughing a lot too. Looked like he was about to keel over. Was that guy really okay? No. But yeah, so, he was talking about the preliminaries. Apparently there were still too many applicants, there were 21 of us. Kabuto quit. I was honestly disappointed. He turned to us and apologized, I'm sorry, but those guys really did a number on me. And ever since that fight with the sound nin prior to the first exam, I've been totally deaf in my left ear. Now they're saying this could be a fight to the death and I just don't think I'm up to that. I gave a small quiet sigh. It wasn't a sign of my disappointment or anything. It was just a sigh. So I gave him a reassuring smile and lifted a hand. It's fine. I do hope you get to pass all the exams sometime. That is, if you really want to. If you don't, you shouldn't force yourself to come to these exams. I looked at him in concern. He seemed taken aback. No, I'm fine. Well. That's good. I gave him a slight cheerful smile. You know, if you wanted, you could join M. Giba, who was standing right beside me, sprung into action. He wrapped one arm around me while slapping a hand over my face, yelling, intervention. Everyone turned to stare at us. It was worth it to see Madara actually faceap him. Ha ha. Beside him, Hashirama was laughing, and at the old man's side, Tobirama just rolled his eyes. Jeez, he was such a stoic guy. Diba coughed nervously and slowly pulled away with a sheepish grin. Sorry about that. Carry on. Shooting us a weird look after talking to his teammate, Kabuto left. Still shooting us those odd looks. Geez, we weren't that strange, were we? Don't answer that. It's rhetorical. Sasuke had been watching Kabuto go when he suddenly jerked, curling into himself slightly and placing a hand at his neck. What the heck? Sasuke? I asked, concerned. He grimaced. It's nothing, dope. Nothing. Nothing, your fluffy yellow-winged relative, I retorted, lowering my voice. Prince, you're shaking. Don't tell me it's nothing. He's right, Sasuke, Sakura cried, distressed. Maybe you should quit too. Ever since that Orochimaru attacked you, you haven't been yourself. That mark on your skin is hurting again, isn't it? And it just keeps getting worse. Orochimaru. Is she talking about Slinky? And Mark? Ouchie, what mark? I demanded. They ignored me. Please withdraw, Sakura whimpered. I'm afraid. She wiped at her tear-filled eyes and glared at him. You're in no shape to fight, Sasuke. Shut up, he hissed. I looked back and forth between them, feeling a little helpless. Sasuke, I know that you've been barely able to contain the pain all this time, she continued. He growled, I said. You leave me no choice. If you won't listen to reason, I'm going to tell the teachers about the mark. Then she began to raise her arm. Sasuke shot out to grab it. A little ticked off, I closed my own hands around theirs instead. Guys. Hold on. I half whispered, half snapped. First, calm down, both of you. They stilled. I waited, and when I knew they were focused on me, I continued, Sakura, just hang on a minute. You're upsetting yourself with good reason, I know. But just breathe. I switched my gaze to my black-haired teammate. Sasuke, remember what I told you? You're not alone. You've got teammates, friends. Dude, when you're in pain, you need to tell us. We're like rocks for each other. That's what being teammates means. We gotta hold each other up. There doesn't need to be so much pride between us. There doesn't need to be so much distance. I gently let go of their wrists to place my hand on his neck and smile. There's no need, Ouchie. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he slowly let out a breath and briefly closed his eyes before opening them again to look at me. I have a mark on my neck where the guy we were fighting earlier, the one with the snake, bit me. It hurts. Wow. To hesitate like that must mean that is a massive understatement. Okay. It's okay. I wrapped my arms around him, and after a moment of hesitance, Sakura joined in. Before this, before I became a genin, before I had a team, I did not know I could love any comrade so much as I loved them. Now I did. Even Madara didn't say anything about soft, sappy emotions. Which was actually kinda funny, and I always got a kick out of it, since he could love with the best of them. In fact, he was one of the best of them. Best of who, you ask? Well, I dunno. And I didn't much care, since I was currently snuggling a cherry blossom and a duck prince. Then the preliminaries started, and it wasn't so cuddly. First up. Uchiha Sasuke Nakato Yoroi, Kabuto's teammate. Don't make me have to save you, Ouchie, I whispered to him as Sakura and I let go and he turned to leave. He smirked. You're one to talk, dope. You know, you really need a new nickname for me. That one's getting old. He left, grumbling, but I think he was considering it. Everyone other than the two combatants had to move to the upper gallery. Before we went, Kakashi-sensei came over and murmured something to Sasuke which then made him look at him sharply and place a hand over his neck. Something about the mark, then. The dark mark, I'm gonna call it. The fight began. Well, the fight didn't go too well at first. Sasuke got pretty beaten up. Then I called out encouragement to him, which caused him to glance up, and I think he got an idea from spotting Sparkles Lee, beside me. He used the move Sparkles had used against him before, and the rest was history. Well, no. Actually he had a bit of trouble, but it still worked out okay. The mark on his neck had started to spread sometime but in the end he suppressed it and won. I cheered for him, and then Kakashi-sensei took him away, probably to get his injuries checked out, but also to do something about the newly named Dark Mark, the Kuridesu Mku. Next was Zaku Abumi and Aburam Shino. Pick his jerky behind, harem bro, I called. He proceeded to do so. It was pretty harsh. Zaku got one of his arms blown up and the other blown off. Outwardly, Shino looked unruffled, so I wasn't sure what he was really feeling, but wow. That is one to be cautious of, Madara murmured. Hashirama looked pained. I had hoped that we would be able to grow into a more peaceful time, so that there would not be so much severity. But I suppose it is not yet such a time. Ouch, Maddie, is that the bite of guilt in your heart? I commented. He seemed to be gritting his teeth. Shut it, brat. Sorry, there ain't no lock that'll fit this door. Oh, believe me, child, I will make one, he threatened. I eat it. Sparkles was looking at me with a mix of curiosity and confusion. I see ghosts, I explained in a whisper, and one of them wants to deadlock my mouth and throw away the key. Then my lips twitched. Heh. deadlock. Get it? Ah, I see. Very clever. He said with a burst of enthusiasm before curiosity overcame him once more. You say you see ghosts. Kakashi Senesi stopped by and told us that Sasuke was sleeping in the infirmary, and before I knew it, the next match, Tsurugi Misumi vs Kankuro, was over. Kankuro won. Turned out face paint was a puppet master. Pretty cool. Then it was the fourth match. Haruno Sakura vs Yamanaka Ino. In the arena, Sakura took her hit I-8 from her head and taunted Ino about Sasuke to rile her up. They stared at each other for a long while, then Ino pulled her hit I-8 from her waist and they both tied them around their foreheads. Then they fought. They were both formidable, but then Ino trapped Sakura with strands of the blonde hair she'd cut and used her ninja art Shintension to possess my pink-haired teammate. I could actually see her spirit, but I suppose it makes sense. I don't think she could see the ghosts. I pondered that. Was there anyone else who could? I shook off my wonderings. Thoughts for another time. But the smirk, Ino raised Sakura's hand. I, Haruno Sakura, wished to withdraw from the match. I leaned over the railing on the upper floor to call, don't do it. Come on, Sakura, I could always see the ghost of your inner self. Where has she gone, huh? Sakura jolted and clutched at her head. What's wrong? Are you withdrawing from the match? Asked the proctor. Sakura snapped back into place. Are you kidding? I'm staying in. Oh, yeah. Inner Sakura quickly grew in size to hold Ino in her hands, growling down at her, Ino, if you don't hurry up and get out of my body, you're gonna regret it. Ino hurriedly did so. They were both kneeling on the ground, panting. Then they stood up and punched each other out. Both hit I-8 flew from their heads, clattering on the ground. Simultaneous knockout. Neither combatant was to move past the preliminary round. Kakashi and Asuma-sensei retrieved the two fallen girls, carrying them to the upper gallery and setting them down so that they leaned against the wall. I knelt next to them and gently placed a hand on each of my harem girls' heads. Good job, I murmured. Asuma-sensei noted that neither was badly hurt enough to need treatment from the medical corps and that they should both regain consciousness within the next half hour. But I'm impressed by both of them. Yeah, Kakashi-sensei agreed. Naruto and Sasuke were both doing well, Asuma-sensei continued, and now even fragile little Sakura has shown amazing growth. Asuma-sensei, she's not so little and fragile. Trust me on this. Kakashi-sensei looked down at us. I know you've all been through a lot, but I'm glad I enrolled you all in the Chunin exam. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Oh, did you hear that? Kudabito. From the bottom of his heart. Catch me, Rin, I'm going to swoon. She whacked him over the head. Oh. Rin. He whined, clutching his abused appendage. Feel better? Still gonna swoon? She asked sweetly. Not unless it's from a concussion. Good. Bam. Betrayed. He gasped, stumbling back, hand now over his heart. But, Rin. I thought you loved me. About as much as a mistress can love her slave, I suppose, she said cheerfully. Wow. Kakashi-sensei noticed the direction of my gaze. What is it, Naruto? Obito's in a fetal position on the ground. His eyebrows rose. Is that all you gotta say, Kakashi? Obito shook his fist at his silver-haired friend from the floor. Now he's shaking his fist at you. Betrayed on all sides, moaned the one-eyed Uchiha. Rin sat on him. He slumped. Demoted to a chair so late in life he snickered. Get it? Late in life. Rin rolled over him and let gravity do its work. Erg. I ignored the gurgling coming from the floor and focused on the next battle. It was the worst possible match. A weapons mistress against a wind user. Temari had no trouble at all against Tenten. Next was Nara Shikimori vs Kintsuchi. Shika won, of course. That's my boy, I cheered. My boy ignored me to trudge back to his teammates, but that was okay. I knew he had to forcibly withhold himself from running into my embrace with joy. Yeah. That was it. That was totally it. I heard Madara exhale. At last. My eyes snapped up to the screen showing the combatants for the 7th round. Uzumaki Naruto against Inyazuka Kiba. The grin spread across my face. I pumped my fist in the air. Oh, yeah. Watch out for this, Kiba. Ha. You better be the one watching out, he retorted. Akamaru barked his agreement. Your comeback could have been better, I said bluntly. He scowled, flushing slightly. Shut up. Let's just get on with it. You got it, bro. In the arena, Kiba was muttering to the dog poking out of his jacket, this fight is as good as won, Akamaru. Oh? Feeling confident, are we? I drawled. You bet I am. Well, since you're so sure you're going to win, why don't we make a little bet? I flashed a grin. He immediately looked wary. What kind of bet? Let's call it incentive. If you win, you may pick your prize. If I win, my smile turns sly. You'll join my harem. I'll what? No. He sputtered. Eh? You scared? I taunted. He drew himself up, scoffing. Of course not. Then why not take it? He considered it. And if when, he corrected, I win. I shrugged. Whatever you want. He thought about it for a moment, then held out his hand. Fine. It's a deal. A deal. I shook his hand. Akamaru whined. Don't worry, Akamaru, Kiba assured his dog, we've got this in the bag. I barely restrained myself from grinning madly. Kiba put up a good fight, but it turned out that he did not, in fact, have it in the bag. I clapped him on the shoulder, allowing a nutty smile to spread across my face. Welcome to the club, harem bro. He didn't reply, as he was currently unconscious. Oh, well. I'd tell him when he woke up. I climbed the stairs to the upper gallery and began to walk past Hinata. Then Naruto. I stopped to blink at her and give her a wide smile. Yeah, Hinata-chan. She flushed but went on to shakily hold up a small, round container. I gave it a puzzled look. Wazis. An ointment for wounds, Kurenai-sensei spoke up. For me? My smile softened and I gently took it from her. Thank you, Hinata. You're sweet. She blushed furiously. It's an no problem, Naruto. She said my name without stammering. I beamed, hugging her. She gasped and her form went limp. I pulled back. Hinata. Hina Kurenai-sensei, I think Hinata's passed out. Was it something I did? I asked worriedly. You could say that, she replied dryly. Just set her against the wall. She'll wake up soon. Okay. Madara muttered something which made Hashirama guffaw and slap him on the back. Some people were so weird. Hinata was magnificent in her match against Niji. She had her own kind of splendor. Niji talked a lot. Seriously, so much monologue. Honestly, even if he hadn't been absolutely dreadful to Hinata, I would have deducted points just for that. Anyway, Hinata lost. But only the match. To me, she was no less brilliant. In fact, she was even more so, and I was so proud to have her in my harem. Niji angered me. With his talk of once a failure, always a failure and accepting who you are. With those words, where is the acceptance I should see in you, Hyuga? I asked silently. But no. There was more to him than that. There always is. Hinata was taken to the emergency room by the medics. As I started to walk up the stairs back to the upper gallery, the puppet master with Red Panda-kun hailed me. Hey, he called, walking up to me. You're a funny guy, I like that. Was he talking about when I challenged Niji? I stared at him blankly. I wasn't trying to be humorous. Seeing him grit his teeth, I asked bluntly, what do you want? Well, you see, it's about that Hyuga Niji guy, but he hedged. Ah. He's gathering intelligence, Madara concluded. My observations. Niji is confident on the outside about fate in Wetnut, but at heart, he is furious and defiant and lashing out. I sighed. I suppose I'll have to either talk or beat it out of him. I brightened. Or both. That's not what I asked. You didn't really ask anything, I pointed out. It's time for the next match. The proctor coughed into his fist. The only ones left were Chaoji, adorable fluffy Red Panda-kun, my sparkly Lee, and a sound Nin. The screen lit up. Chaoji roared, I'm safe. R vs Rock Lee. Red Panda and Kageaki. Kageaki jumped down into the arena in which Red Panda had already appeared in a swirl of sand and faced him with a smile. Facing you so soon, he announced, makes me very happy. HMPH, Red responded. Go, Kageaki. I cheered. And Red Panda, too. Still beside me, face paint choked. Red Panda. Yeah. I don't give everyone nicknames, but sometimes they just happen. Gar reminds me of a red panda, and Lee reminds me of Sparkles. I beamed. Perfectly logical. No, not perfectly logical. Worlds can twist beneath illogical logic. And I've decided to combine the words face paint so that I can call you faint. I marveled at the sheer genius. The 9th round battle began. Lee did amazing. He fought marvelously. I'm not sure I could have lasted as long as he did. And when he dropped those weights that had been around his ankles, he became a blur. But, in the end, he was frightening. There is something wrong with that child, Madara had observed. Beside him, Hashirama had been frowning, a little worriedly. Indeed. I feel terrible bloodlust from him. He crushed Lee's arm and leg. Luckily, Guy-sensei stopped him before Gaara could do anything more. Still, though. Even after that, Lee stood up. But I don't think he was even awake. Guy-sensei cried and hugged him. Then the medics came. One of them took Guy-sensei aside and told him that the damage to Kageaki's body was too extensive and that he would never recover enough to be a shinobi again. Gaara's bloodlust was out of control. But while they'd been fighting, I'd noticed 2 ghosts that I hadn't seen before hovering around Red Panda. They'd both had brown hair and looked a lot alike, siblings, probably. They'd both looked feminine, but when one had shouted, his voice had sounded kind of male. So, brother and sister, perhaps. And I'd known they loved him. Red Panda, I mean. Just goes to show, I guess, everyone has a story. 10th and final round. Akamichi Chaoji against Dosu Kanuta. Dosu won. Those of us who won and qualified for the finals of the 3rd phase of the Chunin exam were congratulated. Thus the third Hokage began to explain the finals, with occasional comments from the second and first, along with Madara. Basically, the finals were to be held 1 month from now. The requisite preparation period they called it. In other words, we would use that 1 month to get stronger, learn some new tricks, get some rest. Before that, though, we had to line up so that we could each take a turn reaching into a small box Lady Anko was holding to grab at one of the slips of paper inside with numbers on them. We learned it was to determine the match order for the tournament-style finals. I got one, so I was fighting Niji. I considered believing in destiny and decided to believe in Raymond instead. R was 3, so he was against Sasuke. Kankuro was 5, so he fought Shino. Shikamaru was to fight Temari and or Dosu, the Sound Nin. And thus, we were dismissed. I wanted to ask Kakashi-sensei for help with my training, so I asked Sakura where he was and she answered that he was probably with Sasuke. I went to the hospital and asked for directions to Sasuke's room, but it turned out visiting hours were over. Luckily, Kakashi-sensei was still there. However, it turned out he'd already found someone to oversee my training. I stared at the man who was Konohamaru's teacher. You? Closet perv. Closet perv? Questioned Kakashi-sensei. Yeah. You chose him to be my trainer. I mean, he fell for my ninja harem technique, I said disbelievingly. He. Closet perv clamped his arm around my mouth. Ninja harem. Kakashi-sensei blinked owlishly. Closer laughed nervously. It's nothing, sir. Ha ha, he lowered his voice to hiss to me. I'll treat you to whatever you want later, so don't say anything more about it, okay? This is bribery, I said, voice muffled by his arm. But okay. I didn't know you two knew each other, Kakashi-sensei observed. Well, maybe opposites attract, or he chuckled nervously, patting my head. I gave it a 5 on the pad-o-meter. Nice, but slightly condescending, and not as good as Kakashi-sensei's. We went to the hot springs to train me. Pushing his glasses up his nose, Closer Vibisu said, we're going to walk on water. My eyebrows rose before I thought about it. Is it like tree walking? He seemed pleased by my conclusion. Indeed. This takes it to the next level. It'll be much harder than the tree climbing exercise. He explained it, then opted to show me. First, you gather chakra to the soles of your feet. Then, while you continuously emit a set amount, you fine-tune it to your body weight. He stepped onto the water of the hot springs. A grin broke across my face. Wow. That's so cool. He preened a little. Alright, I'll try. I did as he said, chakra to my soles, a set amount, and, extending my leg to step onto the water, I lowered my foot and fell into the spring. Ah. That's hot. I yelped, scrambling out. Oh, I forgot to mention it, but the water here is 60 degrees centigrade, he added. Gee. Thank you for that information. It's not like I could have used to sooner, right? Focus, Naruto. I can do this. I fell in again. However, standing in the water, it wasn't long before I began to slosh to the top. I concentrated and almost had it before I noticed some white-haired guy hunched over, giggling and staring into a peephole in the wall separating this hot spring from the women's bath. I only had time to point and sputter something before I fell in again. I came up again just in time to see Closer-sensei try to attack the guy before getting knocked out by some kind of huge toad that suddenly appeared under the dude. I stared, mouth open. Who the cheese was this blatant perv? I hopped out of the hot spring to nudge Closer-sensei, but he was out cold. I straightened to eye the white-haired weirdo. Hey, what's with that frog? And who the fudge are you? Wait just a minute there. Good question. He cried, doing some kind of strange pose. I am the most holy hermit sage of the Mount Myaboku toads, otherwise known as the Toad Sage. Pleased to meet ya. Toad Sage, I'm pretty sure I was gaping. The large toad vanished in a puff of smoke. In a slightly dazed state, I did notice a ghost standing beside him. It was the same one I'd seen with Lady Anko. I'd noticed that he'd disappeared when they were giving out the tournament paper slips. Not again, he was muttering, covering his face with his hand. Did the toad guy do this often? I shook myself out of it, placing one hand on my hip and pointing at my down teacher. Well, Toad Sage, what are you going to do about him, huh? He was supposed to oversee my training, but you knocked him out, I accused. He interfered with my research. My eyebrows flew up. Research? Is that what they're calling it nowadays? Snake Guy cackled while Hikageru-senin defended, I'm a writer. I write novels. Like this one. He pulled out a copy of Icha Icha Paradise from his robe. My eyes widened as I recognized the book that Kakashi-sensei was always giggling over. Oh, you've heard of it? Hikageru-senin asked eagerly. Yeah, I've heard of it. It's obscene. I jabbed my finger at him. And that so-called research was just you peeping on the women's bath, you blatant perv. This is criminal behavior. That fool. I am no ordinary lech. He sputtered. The peeping provides me with inspiration to produce better work. I snorted. Oh, yes. Inspiration. But never mind that. What are you going to do about my training, eh? Training? You mean the walking on water drill you were doing just now? Exactly. As my previous instructor is now unconscious by your doing, it is your duty to take over my training. I nodded, satisfied. Absolutely not. I can't stand rude jerks. And I hate men. I'm not a man, I pointed out, I'm a boy. That doesn't matter. You're male. Eesh. Well, fine, if it was my being male that was the problem, Ninja Centerfold. He gave me a thumbs up. Oh, yeah. Idiot, Snake Eyes muttered. What's this technique called? Well. He ogled me. Ninja Centerfold. Whoa. What imagination. He gaped down at my chest. You're a genius. You're both idiots, Snake Eyes snapped. Madara sighed, rolling his eyes. Tell me about it. Geez, Hashirama, where's the love, I ask you? Oh, wait. He was currently trying to stop his nosebleed. Should ghosts even have those? Then you'll oversee my training. I focused on Hikageru Sennin again. Yup. But there's one condition. I eyed him warily. And that is. He turned away and hunched slightly, poking his fingers together. Why you have to stay like that the entire time you're around me? He glanced at me. I cancelled the jutsu. Say that again, I advanced on him. Naruto looked exactly like a mini irate Minato, Jiraiya observed uncomfortably, shrinking back. Hikageru Sennin waved his hands around. Okay. He said hurriedly. I was just joking. I'll supervise your training. Try that drill again, okay, kiddo. Fine. He got off easy. This time. After I fell in the water again, my sweatsuit was hanging off me, pulling me down, so I took it off. Hikageru Sennin had me manipulate my chakra one more time and, after a moment of observation, he told me to lift my arms up, then he jabbed me in the stomach. I crumpled, hunching over and gasping, why? I stimulated some relaxation points for you, Hikageru Sennin explained. Just go over there and try walking one more time, okay? I did so, and to my surprise and delight, I actually walked on the water, as was the purpose of the exercise, but I did it. Good job, Naruto. Hashirama called happily. HMPH. Not bad, child. Madara grunted. But I'm sure he was very proud. Then Hikageru Sennin called me over. He said he'd teach me a super special move, then told me that I had 2 different types of chakra. Yeah. I recalled that I'd felt it. It had been different from the one I usually used. For example, if my usual chakra was feathers, then this one was fur. Good. Alright, it's getting late. Let's leave the fun for tomorrow. I'll take this guy to the place where I'm staying, Hikageru Sennin said, crouching down beside Closer Vibisu-sensei. Come here again tomorrow, okay? Tomorrow? Well, you could be sure I would be getting up bright and early now. Interlude. Gekko Hate. In the night of Konoha, a dark-haired, sickly shinobi died by the wind of sand, and the long-haired ghost that followed him everywhere threw back her head and wailed. Normal. How did this happen? I wondered as I fell to my death. Oh, right. It's that darn Hikageru Sennin's fault. To recap, the guy had me exhaust my regular chakra so that I could invoke the fur chakra more easily. Then he summoned the giant toad I'd seen yesterday. It had a scroll in its mouth, which it lay on the ground. As directed, I signed my name and blood on the scroll and made fingerprint impressions below it. Finally, I was ready to summon a toad. I made the signs for boar, dog, monkey, rooster and sheep and summoned a tadpole. Yay, me. 15 days later, Hikageru Sennin was re-aiming me out for only summoning tadpoles. Finally, though, to my triumph, I managed to summon one with back legs. I pumped my fist. Ha. Yes. Hikageru Sennin and the ghosts weren't so impressed. Ugh. Then, 3 weeks since the start of training, while Hikageru Sennin was peeking through the bushes at some girls in swimsuits at a lake and giggling, I got to summoning little frogs with tails that looked like half-grown tadpoles. That done, I collapsed, unconscious. I woke up when Hikageru Sennin flopped me onto the grassy ground. Wah, I mumbled. Get up, Hikageru Sennin said, looking unusually serious. I staggered to my feet, more awake now. What? Your training ends today. If you value your life, you've got to figure things out for yourself. Okay. I gave a puzzled frown as Toad Sage lifted his hand to tap my forehead. That tap turned into a jab and it pushed me off balance, causing me to fall backward. Off a freaking cliff. So, that was why I was now plummeting to my death. I tried to grab onto a rock using chakra, but my hand slipped right off. The walls of the gorge were too smooth to get a proper hold of. And so, I still fell. And fell. And fell. I gasped, my eyes flying open. I blinked. I was in some kind of sewer. There were a great many pathways. But one in particular sent a chill down my spine. In there, something roared. I felt it. It was that chakra. The one with fur. So, me being me, I followed the feel of it into the pathway. It led to a huge set of bars, a gate. There was something gigantic behind it. Its voice was deep and rumbly. Who are you? My eyes were wide with curiosity. I'm Uzumaki Naruto. Who are you? The creature was male, judging from his voice, ignored my question. No, you are not. What? His lips pulled back in a sneer, sharp teeth gleaming in the darkness. You are not Uzumaki Naruto. I ask again, who are you? I frowned, protesting, but I am. No. He is. A long claw pointed behind me. I turned and blinked. You're me? I double laughed. Nah. You're me. Oh, there's a difference. Yeah. It's my body you're possessing, after all. Say what? My body, he said patiently. You're possessing it. You're not me. You're someone else. I peered closer and realized that though we looked alike, we were not completely similar. His face was less soft, not so feminine looking. I pulled back, bewildered. But if I'm not me, or you, or whatever, then who am I? Well, there's one thing we can be sure of, Naruto said cheerfully. What? I'm pretty sure you're a girl. I blinked. Then I thought about it. Is that why I've always looked so feminine? Probably, he confirmed. The creature who may or may not be the Kyuubi snorted scornfully. You look just like that blonde brat of a yondaime. A yondaime? I questioned. The fourth Hokage. He was the one to seal me inside that other blonde brat. Oh. Naruto coughed. You've probably got questions, cause I sure do, but oh, aren't you kin to falling to your death right now? Oh, right. I stared at him blankly, then remembered that yes, I was. Crap. He grinned, looking amused. I ignored him, turning to the Kyuubi. Yo, will you lend me some of your chakra? I currently have very little and, well, impending death and all. I looked up at him hopefully. The Kyuubi gave a rumbling laugh. You're a cheeky one. It looks like I've got another blonde brat to contend with very well. Take this. My eyes snapped open to see that I was, once again, in the middle of a gorge, dropping to my death. Filled with the feeling of furry chakra, I bit my thumb, drawing blood, and made the signs for summoning. Below me, a ginormous toad even bigger than the one I'd seen with Toad Sage, appeared in a burst of smoke. Delighted, I fell back to lay on its head. I slid down its face to its nose, laughing. Hey, urchin. Why are you making so much noise, idiot? I'm trying to enjoy my first breath of fresh air in a long time, hooray. Whoa. Talking toad. I thought, amazed. Hey. You, scamp. Where's Jiraiya? He asked gruffly. What? Who? That lecherous lout, summoning me to a place like this and putting a weird brat on top of my head, too. Lecherous lout. He must mean Hikageru Sennin. Actually, I summoned you, I said tentatively, laughing a little shyly. I needed someone to rescue me. You? I nodded. He began to laugh. You oughtn't lie, scamp. There's no way a little midget like you could have summoned the likes of me. He continued to guffaw. Wow. That was one rude toad. I frowned. Now, listen here, Toad-sama. I know this summoning must have been rather abrupt, but there's no need to be like that. I do respect you, but I would be appreciative if you would give me a little more courtesy than that. He stopped, going silent for a while. HMPH. You're an interesting scamp. Perhaps I shall make you my henchman. I perked up, flashing a bright grin. Ooh, I've never been a henchman before. I ignored the new information that had come to light that meant I might be a henchwoman instead. Now was not the time. The big toad chuckled, then he slid out his tongue and wrapped me in it, jumping out of the gorge with one enormous hop. My last thought before I blacked out was that being carried by a tongue was uncomfortably reminiscent of an earlier incident involving a snaky grass nin. I woke up, slowly opening my eyes. Naruto. Hashirama's face broke out in a relieved grin. You're finally awake, child. Madara frowned at me. Good. Now you can kill that perverted idiot for me. Wah. Hey. You finally woke up. I turned my head to blink at the boy sitting at my bedside. Shika, you're at the hospital. You've been unconscious for 3 days. 3 days? I said, startled. Man, but still I started to grin. Well, I'm glad that you're here, harem bro. I knew you cared, despite all those times you sided me. He looked close to sighing again. I just came here to visit Chaoji. When I heard you were laid out too, I poked my head in. And sat loyally at my bedside, I cooed. You're so sweet, Shika. Come here, lem give you a hug. Madara looked faintly disgusted. Hashirama was laughing. Shikamaru just gave me a deadpan look, but I'd gotten distracted. Wait, Chaoji got hurt that bad? Nah. Shika's lips quirked up in a slight smirk. After his match, Chaoji ate too much barbecue and got a severe case of indigestion. I smiled fondly. Of course he did. Oh, right. Shikamaru reached down. It's a huge pain, but I got this fruit basket for Chaoji, but he's not allowed to have it. Doctor's orders. So we can eat it ourselves. Oh. You're so nice, Shika. How about that hug now, eh? I'd rather not. Wow. I gasped, placing a hand over my heart. Rejected so coolly. I sniffed. Surely you are the very epitome of youth. He looked at me oddly, and I wondered belatedly if he'd met Guy Sensei yet. Oops. Whatever. He sighed. I got distracted again. Hey, is Kageaki here? And that was why we were currently facing off against Gaara, who was paralyzed by Shikamaru's shadow possession technique after we found him standing at Lee's bedside, probably not there to give him a get well soon card. Why do these things keep happening? What were you doing? I asked bluntly. Madara scoffed. Foolish question, child. I don't know, he might have been doing something else, Hashirama said lamely. Madara gave him a look that said, really? I wanted to kill him, Gaara finally responded. Oh. I guess that answered my question. Why? I demanded. He seemed to think about it. I just want to kill him. Darn it, Gaara, muttered the brown-haired ghost woman. I love you, but what have I said about your psychopathic tendencies? Not to have them, suggested her brother. Not that he has a choice, she grumbled. Gosh darn it, sometimes I just really want to punch his father. Honey, everyone wants to punch him sooner or later. More sooner than later. Naruto, I snapped back to attention. What? Sergeant Donut. Everyone stared at me. What? I defended. Shikamaru sighed. He's got monster-like strength. I think it would be prudent to pay attention. But I've got a real monster inside of me, I pointed out, casually giving away the S-class secret without a thought. Tiled Madara's voice was muffled because he'd covered his face with his hand. Huh? What? I asked, clueless. A monster, Gaara mused. Actually I've got one of those too. Just like you said, I wasn't raised right. What? Who? When? Huh? What did I miss? You bet your cute little butt you weren't raised right, said the woman ghost with annoyance. I swear, I could just kick my husband right in the nuggets. Her brother winced. Ah, yeah right. What? Don't tell me you wouldn't point and laugh when I did it, Yashimaru. Well maybe a little, he conceded. In the process of my birth, Gaara was saying, I stole the life of the woman I was supposed to call mother. The woman's eyes softened. Aw, no, baby. I willingly gave it to you. In order to create the world's strongest shinobi, my father used ninjutsu to implant an incarnation of sand within my body. I was born a monster. You're not a monster, she snapped. You're my baby. My baby, got that? He cannot hear you, Ni-san, Yashimaru pointed out. HMPH. Known as Shukaku, it was the spirit of a former Sunagakur elder, Gaara continued, that had been sealed inside a kettle. The woman made a choking sound. Is that what they told you? Really? And why a kettle? Imagine if someone had used it by accident. Her brother looked slightly green. Ugh, Kurara, don't say it hadn't crossed your mind, too. Shikamaru had said something, and now Gaara spoke. Love. Don't judge me by your standards. Family, let me tell you what that word means to me. His expression didn't change. Mere hulls of flesh connected by hatred and murderous intent. The woman Kurara groaned. Crop. My mother's life was sacrificed, he went on, so that I could be brought to life as the village's greatest masterpiece and as the Kazukige's son. His mother made a strangling motion which I presumed was supposed to be the Kazukige's asphyxiation. Shooting her an odd look, I inched away and focused once more on Red Panda. He was talking about what he thought was love, i.e. being taught secret shinobi skills, raised in isolation, spoiled, overprotected, until the incident. For the past 6 years, ever since I turned 6, Gaara's face twisted in a parody of a smile. My father has been trying to assassinate me. I've lost count of how many attempts he's made. Kurara sighed. Your father is a fool, honey. A gosh darn fool, and he doesn't deserve to have such an adorable son. Who tries and mostly succeeds to kill people, but totally your father's fault, Yashimaru added. She nodded, satisfied. A presence that is too powerful becomes a presence that is feared, Gaara had said. Mind unstable, fearsome and dangerous object, too great a liability prior to that, handled with care like any other hazardous instrument, a relic of the past that they wish to erase and forget, and on and on. I felt like whistling. Now, he has issues. And you don't? Said Inner Madara. Back again, are you, in Madara? Ah child, what? Something wrong with my nickname? Nicknames, plural. I huffed. Well, I like them. Of course you do. Hey. What's that mean? So for what purpose do I exist? Why am I alive? At first, when I asked myself that, I had no answer. What the heck? My eyes widened. Inner Madara went silent. I was paying attention now. But while I continue to live, I need a reason. Otherwise I might as well be dead. Kurara let out a cry. My baby. Yashimaru wrapped his arms around his anguished sister. But Madara and Hashirama, I risked a glance at them. Oh, fudge nuts. They weren't angry, no, they were absolutely furious. He dared do this to his own son, Madara spat. Family is meant to be protected. No matter what. For once, there was no kindness in Hashirama's face. Madara, I swear, I will find a way to make our bodies corporeal, and then we will hunt him down and make him wish we were as merciful as the dark god Jashin, Madara finished darkly. Elsewhere, a certain silver-haired immortal priest sneezed. Ani-san. Izuna appeared, perhaps drawn by his elder brother's wrath. He was immediately pulled into a tight embrace. Hashirama thought about his own brother, at Hira's side. Tobirama twitched in irritation and decided, what the hey. He sidled closer to join in. What the fudge, Izuna said flatly. Ara was speaking. So this is what I came up with. I exist to kill all humans other than myself. Living in constant fear, knowing I might be assassinated at any moment, I finally found inner peace. Izuna gaped. What the fudge? By killing those who sought to kill me, Red Panda continued, I was able to discern a reason for living and justify my own existence. He lifted his head to gaze at us with those pale green eyes of his. I would fight only for myself and love only myself. If all people exist to magnify that love, then there is no more splendid world than this one. They allow me to experience the joy of living for as long as there are people out there for me to kill. His lips curved. Then I will not cease to exist. Hirura and Yashimaru were both crying. Who is this child? Izuna whispered. What is he? Madara murmured to him, but I wasn't listening. I was staring at Gaara. Perhaps my lips trembled, I'm not sure. My vision blurred slightly. Odds, he was so alone. I held back what might have been a gasp or a sob. I wanted to help him, save him. Was I being arrogant? Conceited? Was this heavy feeling in my chest not only compassion but also a sort of vain pity? Was I being patronizing? I really wanted to hug him. I'll keep you company. The words were in my throat, on my tongue, I love you. I love you like a bro or sister. But I didn't speak them. Ara said, now help me feel alive. Enough. We all looked towards the voice. It was Guy-sensei. The finals start tomorrow. Don't be in such a hurry. He looked down at Gaara. Unless you're eager to become an impatient today. Gaara winced, hand flying up to his head. He slowly began to walk unsteadily towards the door. There, he paused for a moment to look back at us. I will kill you all, just you wait. He left. His ghosts followed. I decided that I would no longer call Gaara Red Panda. From then on, he would be something that I thought suited him far more. Oh, gods, no, muttered inner Madara. I ignored him. Lovely, I mused. A grin broke across my face. You disgust me. Yes. It was perfect. In my bed, I opened my eyes to stare up at the ceiling. The day was the day I fought Niji, but that wasn't really what I was thinking about. I mean, that was part of it, but I was mostly focused on the fact that I had no idea who I was. I hadn't allowed myself to think about it much, what with waking up in the hospital and that thing with Gaara. But now, okay, so far, I know a few things. 1. I'm not Naruto. 2. I'd possess the actual Naruto's body. 3. I'm most likely female. And that's about it. Well, at least now I know the reason for always feeling slightly displaced in this body. Turns out I was literally displaced. Ha ha. Off. Right, anyway, I should probably tell my teammates about this. Oh, and old man Hokage. But wait, which old man? Oh ho 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 ho. Perhaps I should stop making bad puns in my mind. Saying them aloud is fine, though. Gahahaha. Tiled, get up and go to the academy already. Fine. You're so impatient, Maddie. I threw my blanket back, slipping out of bed. Don't call me that. In a fit of nostalgia, I made my way to the training ground where Kakashi-sensei conducted the bell test. I was surprised to find Hinata there. Hey, Hinata-chan. You're all better. She started and turned around quickly, shrinking back behind one of the logs. Oh, and then Naruto-kun. What are you doing here? Aren't the finals today? She asked tentatively. I shrugged. Yeah. I just felt like coming here for some reason. I flashed a grin. You know, this is where I became a genin. Oh, really? Yep. Say, your cousin is pretty strong, isn't he? I said thoughtfully. Why yeah, she bit her lip. But of all people I really think you have a chance to win against him, Naruto. She didn't stutter on my name. Well, on the name that I'd thought was mine. I beamed at her. Wow, thanks. You know, you're so cute, Hinata. Can I hug you? She went completely red. WWH what? Please. I gave her my best puppy dog eyes. I. Stop teasing her, brat. She looks as if she is about to pass out, Madara said indifferently. Teasing her? Bro, I am completely serious about this. I needs ma cuddles and huggles. Hinata gulped. Guess you CC can. Yes. Score. I happily scurried over. Some would say that I pounced on her like a wild lion on a gazelle, but I'd like to call it a show of enthusiastic affection. The gazelle leaped as I squeezed her. So cute. We stood there and after a long moment of hesitation, she tentatively returned the hug. I nearly exploded from delight. I heard Hashirama venture, maybe we were wrong about her. No, Madara said flatly. We weren't. What can I say? I know how to love, I do it well, often, and in great amounts. Why you know, Naruto Hinata began hesitantly, when you cheered me on I felt like somehow I became stronger than before and when the preliminaries were over, I started to like myself a bit more. From the outside, I might not seem any different, but her unsure voice grew slightly stronger. I feel like I've changed. And Naruto, it's all because of you. Her voice grew softer again. At least that's what I think. I felt strangely struck and vulnerable. Wow, really? But I mean, I don't even really know myself. I wasn't even really Naruto. I was someone else, someone I didn't know. Someone nobody knew. I was just someone else. Now I wondered, who am I? I don't really know myself now, when I'm not even who I thought I was, do I? I think you do. You've always seemed so self-assured, Naruto. Why, you're not afraid to show people that you like them. And you always seem to do whatever enters your mind first. I pulled back, giving her a small grin. Yeah, that nearly always ends up with me saying, it seemed like a good idea at the time. It's inspiring, she said firmly. Whenever you fall down, you always get back up, you always keep on fighting. That's what I think is true strength. I looked at her with admiration. Well, then, you're quite strong yourself, Hinata. She blushed. And she thought better of whatever she was going to say. Thank you, Naruto. I smiled warmly. I do like you, you know, Hinata. Her mouth fell open. Let's go, before she begins to hyperventilate, Madara muttered. I'll see you at the match, right? Why yes, she stammered, still seeming in shock. Great. I beamed at her and turned to go, whistling a jaunty tune. Suddenly, the morning seemed so much brighter. We were standing in the arena for the finals, which was situated outside. I glanced around, looking for Sasuke, but I didn't see him. Beside me, Shikamaru also seemed to be looking for that sound nin he was supposed to fight. Hey. Stop fidgeting, muttered the proctor to us. Stand still and face forward toward the guests, for all of you are the stars of these finals. Madara snorted. I glanced up at our proctor. He wore his hide over his brown hair, like a Biki-san had his, except the leaf was at the back of his head instead of the front, and a senbon was sticking out of his mouth. I wondered if it was okay to chew on that. Anyway, I guess what he'd said had been meant to motivate us. Still, he could have chosen his words better. Being told that we're stars reminded me of pop singers. You're a rock star, Naruto. Yeah, no. Finally, the Kazekage arrived and was seated in a chair next to the Hokage. I noticed Kurura shaking her fist at him. At least Yashimaru talked her out of making any more obscene gestures. We were waiting for the Hokage to announce the start, and after a little bit of waiting, he stood up, clearing his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests, welcome and heartfelt thanks for gathering here in Konohagakure for the Chunin selection examination. We will now begin the matches of the final round between the 8 candidates who advanced in the preliminaries. Please sit back and enjoy. Whew. That old man sure has got a set of lungs on him. Our brown-haired proctor turned to face us. Before we begin, I have a few announcements. Look here. He held up a piece of paper showing the combatants matched against each other. There have been a few last-minute changes. Look again and confirm your assigned opponent. I noticed that the Dosu guy wasn't there anymore. Did he withdraw or something? Whatever. I was more concerned with a certain duck-haired missing teammate. I raised my hand. Hey. What? Proctor dude asked. What's gonna happen since Sasuke's not here yet? If he doesn't arrive by the start of his own match, he'll lose by forfeit, he answered, apparently not caring. Okay. It was already weird that he wasn't here, but if he didn't show up at his match, which he probably wouldn't miss, even if he had some fatal injury, and that hopefully wasn't the case, then I would get really worried. Still uncaring, Brown-san said, listen up, all of you. This is the last exam. The landscape may be different, but just as with the prelims, there are no set of rules. You fight until one of you dies or admits defeat, unless I determine that a clear winner has already been decided, in which case, I'll stop the match before anyone gets killed. Understand? Yep. Alright, then match 1, Uzumaki Naruto and Hyuga Neji. You two, stay down here. The rest of you, proceed to the waiting room outside of the arena. The others walked away, Shikamaru with one last glance at us. I probably shouldn't wave and blow him a kiss, should I? Child, whatever you are thinking of, do not. Beep. Menacing Madara makes an appearance. Oh, wait, he was always menacing. Gwahaha. Odds, what is wrong with me? Neji and I faced each other. The smile that had been hovering about my lips disappeared. You got something to say? He smirked. I will win. Vow it, child, Madara commanded. Amused, I said, I vow it. You crazy, melodramatic, yet strangely endearing old coot. Good. Now, kick his sorry behind. Well, that was an order I wouldn't mind following. No uncertainty, no hesitation, that vow would not be broken. It was dramatic, yes, but truly meant. Now, then match 1 begin. Brown-san announced. Neji chuckled as he settled into his stance. It's more fun this way, anyway. I can't wait to see the despair in your eyes when the truth finally dawns on you. Oh, God, the monologue. I rolled my eyes upwards. Please, stop talking so that we can beat each other up already. I need to punch you so that I can prove my masculinity. Finally, I'll be able to giggle in a highly pitched voice and wear sparkly pink like the manly man I am. Madara slapped a hand to his face. That was one check going on the calendar. I'd have to think of something else tomorrow to get him to do it again. My daily facipum accomplished, I got ready to attack. I wondered if I would be able to catch him off guard if I laughed gleefully as I charged him, shrieking, "Wee." Okay, no. I wasn't that ready to throw away all sense of dignity and sanity. As much fun as that would be. So, Niji and I fought. I made witty, scathing remarks. He talked. Like, a lot. Even more than when he'd been fighting Hinata. He told me all about the hateful legacy of the Hyuga clan and showed me the curse mark on his forehead. Yes, we paused in the middle of a match for that, but his story had informed me of his injustice. To be so under someone else's power must chafe. And he talked all about fate this and fate that, but it seemed to me he was fighting against this fate. Fighting fiercely. Maybe that's why he hit so hard. I would change this clan that would put their family under dominion. How? I'm not sure. But I'm not alone in this. I've got Hinata's help and she's strong. Trust me, she'll be a force to be reckoned with. Where was I? Ah, yes. The match. I won. With my foxy inmate's help, of course. I think, maybe, Niji began to believe me a little then. Perhaps he'll start to believe in himself now. You know, not in that I'm so superior way. It would be good if he went easier on Hinata, too. All in all, I think he's got more to look forward to now. Like being in my harem. Maybe I should tell him about that last bit. Yeah. Sometime. So, that match was over. And Sasuke was still missing. That wasn't good. People were calling demanding for the next match. I'm pretty sure they were all worked up just because it was Sasuke. The Saigo no Uchiha. Please. Could there be any more idiotic name for the Uchiha hero? The last Uchiha. Like that's all he is. No. He is so much more. We are all more. What could he be doing? Shikamaru muttered. Is he not coming at all? The wise man does not court danger, a prudent decision, stated Shino. Well, I reflected, I guess I'm not all that wise or prudent. Well, no. Actually, my name should totally be Wise or Prudence. Ah. I'd just come up with a name for myself since I didn't know my real one. Ha. Shino, my man, you've done it again. Shino, you're a genius. What else had they been talking about? Sasuke whispered through her mind. Oh, yes. Right. Thank you, subconscious. You've saved me once again. But there's no doubt he'll be here. The pause was brief, hardly noticeable, so Shino and Shikamaru thought she or he was talking about Sasuke both times. But nothing can be that simple with Prudence Shinchim, now, can it? Not even when she thought she knew who she was. Especially then. I-eyed Gaara. Lovely glared back at me. My dear, you're looking a little red around the edges, there. You're being irrational again, child, Inner Madara said. Asp. How did you know? Can you read my mind? I'm in your mind, child, he stated flatly. Oh, no. Quick. I must purge myself of this mean old man intruder. I am no intruder. He snorted. I'm not from the outside. I am here because of you. I am entirely your own doing. Oh, man, I must have been insane or something to have created you. Or something. Perhaps he wishes to be disqualified, Hashirama remarked. What? Huh? Who? Where? Outer Madara's lip curled. Have you forgotten what he is, Hashirama? He is an Uchiha. He folded his arms across his chest and stared steadily at the arena. He will come. Wow. Have expectations of your clan much, Maddie? I commented. Of course, he snapped. They are my clan. Yeah, I believe I said that. You infuriate me, child. Oh, goody. That means I'm doing my job right. After a while, in which the people grew even more raucous for Sasuke, a man with a burn scar on the left side of his face walked over to the proctor, Brown-san, and murmured something to him. Brown-san announced to us, everyone. One of the contenders for the match has not arrived yet. No shit. Gasped Inarabito. Aw, man. Another one. Please, you love me and don't repeat that word I just said. What word? You mean, la. I can't hear you. Lalafabagalala. The bagalala. I need variety. Okay, I suddenly snapped out of it. Wait, what happened? Madara sighed. Pay attention, child. But I don't wanna. Inarabito snickered. Sasuke's match has been postponed, Shino explained in a monotone. Why? Because there would most likely be an uprising if it were to be disqualified. Hey. You mean my match has been moved up? Shikamaru demanded. One would assume so. Well then the next pairing is Kankuro against Aburame Shino. Please come down. Brown-san called. I glanced up towards the painted puppet master. He looked to be grimacing. I withdraw. I blinked, surprised and confused. Why? I mean, sure, Shino is all awesome and stuff, but it's the principle of the thing. Shikamaru seemed as startled as I was, and from what I could tell, so did Shino. Blonde pigtails grabbed the large fan at her back and snapped it open, giving it one big wave and creating a gust of wind. She hopped onto her fan and rode it down. I turned to give Shino a commiserating pat. "People are weird," I said knowingly. "Using yourself as an example, are you, child?" Madara murmured. Hashirama wasn't even bothering to try to stop him anymore. Why it took 12 years for that, though, I have no idea. "Hey. Final candidate, get down here." Brown-san ordered. Shikamaru looked like he was seriously thinking about just quitting the whole troublesome thing right then and there. So I gave him a push. "Come on, harem bro." I fought, he fought, everybody fought. "Just get on with it, hey?" I gave him a small smile. "Or I'll hug you until you asphyxiate." There was a pause. Then he gave a huge sigh, shoulders slumping as he turned to trudge down to the arena. "How do you even know that word?" I heard him mutter before out of earshot. I turned back and noticed the others looking at me. "What?" "Naruto," Hashirama said gently, "I believe you should spend some time away from Madara. Get a little peace and quiet." "Are you saying he's not peaceful? Or quiet?" I will kill you both and leave your bodies for the scavengers to find," Madara stated. "You can't kill me, and Hashirama doesn't have a body," I pointed out. "Not one that's corporeal, anyway." Last. Shikamaru's match started. Shikamaru won, or he would've if he hadn't forfeited. He'd had Temari in his shadow possession, but well, he's Shikamaru. "Victor, Temari," called the proctor. Shikamaru sighed, rubbing his neck. "Geez. That guy." I clambered down from the balcony and dropped to the ground. "Shikamaru, you dork," I said cheerfully, walking over to him. "Whatever. Yeah. Anyway, I'm here to walk you back to your seat." He raised an eyebrow. I explained, "I'm just a nice guy like that." I faltered on the word guy. "Dang it." He noticed, of course, and gave me a questioning glance. I ignored it. Anyway, I glanced around. "Looks like my errant teammate still isn't here. What is that duck doing?" Shikamaru looked at me oddly. At that moment, there was a whirl of leaves and wind. It would have been cool if a leaf hadn't hit me in the eye. Gah. I clutched at my face. The leaves and wind slowed, and in the middle of them was my not-so-missing teammate and teacher. "Ah, so sorry we're late," said Kakashi-sensei. "Yeah, right," Obito said cheerfully. "He's so not," Rin agreed. The proctor smirked. "Your name?" "Uchiha Sasuke." I glared with my one eye and cursed at him. "You duck." He glanced at me, then looked closer. "What happened to you?" "One of your duck-damn leaves hit me in the eye." That oh-so-cool Uchiha non-expression on his face gave way to a smirk. Obito, meanwhile, didn't bother with a smirk. He guffawed. Rin also laughed hard, staggering a little and holding on to Obito to keep her up. Besides Sasuke and Kakashi-sensei, Itachi's lips were twitching. Shikamaru was snickering. "The love. The concern," I deadpanned, placing a hand over my heart. "It just gets me right here." Sasuke shook his head, still smirking. "You're such a dork. And you're still a duck. You're the duckiest of ducks. Orc." I grinned toothily. He rolled his eyes. "I take it you won the first round, then?" "Of course. Though you weren't here to see it," I added. "You know, Sasuke, there's fashionably late and then there's just late." Kakashi-sensei began, flashy entrance notwithstanding. "And it was really flashy," I said under my breath. He ignored me. "Don't tell me Sasuke lost by forfeit." He sheepishly rubbed the back of his neck. "See, I told you we'd be late, Sasuke. Maybe your tardiness is contagious." Brown-san retorted. "Sheesh." Kakashi-sensei coughed. "So what's the deal?" The proctor smiled slightly. "Don't worry, you're safe. Sasuke's match was postponed. His match wasn't forfeited." Itachi smiled faintly. "Good for you, Ataudo," he murmured. Kakashi-sensei laughed. "Oh, good. You're so cute like this, Kakashi." Rin gushed. "Though the fact that we know you read dirty books detracts from your charm," added Obito. "Yeah. Those giggles are creepy," Rin agreed. Obito sighed, shaking his head. "If I'd known you'd grow up like this," he grinned and flashed a thumbs up. "I'd have totally gotten you started sooner." Whack. "Ow. Ryan." I blinked and realized that Sasuke and Gaara were looking at each other. Their eyes met across the crowd. "It was murderous intent at first sight," I murmured. Sasuke gave me a look. I grinned back. He rolled his eyes. I commented, "You know, you're gonna strain your eyes sometime if you keep doing that. But at least you're not scowling," I mused. "I swear, someday Madara's face is gonna stick like that." Up on the balcony, Madara felt oddly ticked off. He scowled and immediately his irritation increased. "Brat," he muttered. I felt strangely accomplished. "Gaara, come down," Brown-san called. Shikamaru turned to me. "Naruto, let's go back upstairs." "Right." I flashed one last grin at Sasuke. "See you later, Aoji." He just nodded at me. I turned and started walking beside Shikamaru, Itachi following. After all, it was Sasuke's fight, not his own. We walked up the stairs, Shikamaru a little behind me. "Come on, Shika." No good ever comes from rushing, you know, he muttered. Itachi gave a slight smile before suddenly stiffening. I blinked, turning my head to stare into the small tunnel that led to the balcony. Shikamaru noticed. What is it? We both jolted when, in the tunnel, two people screamed before suddenly being cut off. Then there was the sound of footsteps. Don't move, Itachi commanded. Like I could. No, I was absolutely frozen in place, not even daring to breathe. Ara stepped out of the tunnel and kept walking. He didn't even glance at us as he moved past us, down the stairs. Then he was gone. I blew out the breath I'd been holding, suddenly sitting down. That was close. Shikamaru sat down beside me. If it hadn't been for those two we probably would have been killed. Itachi shook his head. Not probably. You would have been killed. Unable to hear him, Shikamaru grimaced. I've never met anyone who killed so automatically. Even Sasuke better watch it, yikes. Oh, dang. Sasuke. I felt a hand on my head. He can take care of himself, Naruto. Aha. And you're not worried at all, are you, big brother Itachi? Not having spoken aloud, he didn't respond. We were still sitting on the stairs, just, you know, getting our bearings back. Abruptly, Shikamaru spoke up. Remember the time we ran into him at the hospital? That time, he said I will kill you all, just you wait. He looked at me. But he didn't. Even though it was his best chance, we don't even register in his sight. He looked away again. My eyes glazed as I remembered. Ara said, now help me feel alive. I would have no problem with that, man, if I didn't like feeling alive so much myself. I realized I should probably respond to what Shik had said. Yeah, so? He rolled his eyes. Jeesh, first Sasuke, now him. We're not enough for him. Right now, the only one who can satisfy him is Aojiahiru, I finished, understanding. Right. I ignored his look, suddenly determined. I stood up. Alright. Let's go watch the match. He hurried after me. What about Sasuke? Don't worry. I'll help if he needs it. And I'm not sure he will. I added under my breath, mostly. Not to be taken seriously, as it was written at 4 a.m. What can I say? I get nutty when I'm sleep deprived. Well, nuttier. My eyes glazed as I remembered. Ara said, now help me feel alive. Want some sugar? He paused. What? Sugar? I held out a packet of little sugar candies. It'll help you feel alive. He gazed down at it, pondering. Finally, he conceded, all right. He took the packet from me and ripped it open. He took one candy in his fingers, squinting at it, before shrugging and popping it into his mouth. He chewed on it, then, apparently judging it worthy, he proceeded to demolish the rest and lick his fingers. Shikamaru and I watched in wide-eyed horror as the red-headed boy blinked and began to vibrate. Gaara's eyes darted around. We started backing away as the quivering intensified. Then he started bouncing off the walls. Literally. Such youth. A voice exclaimed. Our eyes shot to the doorway, where Guy-sensei stood posed with his feet planted firmly on the floor, hands on his hips. I am inspired to see such exuberance in the youth of today. He cried. And despite the fact that you put poor, adorable young Lee in the hospital, probably never to become the great shinobi that he so wanted to be, ever, I commend you, evil, demon-like, yet cool and youthful child. Ha ha. He laughed heartily. Then he noticed a sugar candy that had been dropped, which had rolled across the floor to stop at his feet. Oh. What is this? He bent down and picked it up, studying it curiously before unwrapping it and putting it in his mouth. Shikamaru and I clung to each other in shared terror. Guy-sensei began to shake. He oohed. He exploded. I looked at Shikamaru in horror and he returned it. What have you done? He whispered. I shook my head helplessly. God save us all. That was when Iruka-sensei strolled in. I'm here, puny mortals. Watch and eat. I stared at him. Iruka-sensei, you mean you're really? Nah. He laughed. But hey, you should have seen your faces. I abruptly ended the reverie, feeling a little ticked off. I don't care if it never happened, I'm gonna punch Iruka-sensei in the face the next time I see him, I muttered. What? Shikamaru gave me an odd look. Weren't we just talking about Gaara? And what about Sasuke? Weren't you concerned for him? Whatever. I'll punch him in the face, too. Itachi frowned at me. No. My Itato's face is too pretty for that. Mine is prettier, naturally, but still. Wow. What happened to Big Brother mode? He sniffed. Please. As if I'd strain my face with that. What? I've had a lot of stress in my life, okay? God. He huffed, crossing his arms over his chest. And besides, these lines on my face just make me even more beautiful. I'm a little ook there, Itachi. Shut up. Whatever, Shikamaru suddenly announced, laying back on the stairs. It's too bothersome to go try to save Sasuke anyway. Wake me up sometime next century or not. I gave him a thumbs up. Believe it. We're all friends here. Yeah. Heart of the cards. No, wait. And omic please. Oh, my fudge and cheese. I gaped. Sure, I hadn't been expecting Sasuke to be doing badly when I went to watch the match, but cheeses, he looked like he was actually starting to beat Gaara. Especially with a move Kakashi-sensei had taught him, called Chidori. 1000 birds. He'd gotten through Gaara's defense. He reminds me of you when we were younger, Madara, Hashirama murmured. Itachi didn't even glance in the old Uchiha's direction, keeping his eyes on his younger brother as Madara grunted. He, too, was watching the fight. Except he probably won't end up defecting from the village and then trying to destroy it, added the first Hokage. Madara twitched. Wow, Hashi. Nice. I think you've just cursed us, I said. Please. Madara sneered. What are the odds of that happening twice? And now you've doomed us all. I didn't take you for being superstitious, Naruto, Itachi commented. I see ghosts. A few people looked at me oddly for that. I ignored them. Point taken. Anyway, where was I? Oh, yeah. Sasuke's just penetrated Gaara's defense. There was a pause. Then a wail cut through the air. Blood. I'm bleeding. I winced. Crap. I don't think that's good, said Obito, standing near Kakashi-sensei. No shtick, obvious Taichu. Rin snorted. Rin, you're kind of starting to scare me. She leered at him. Oh. But I'm so kind and gentle. Obito shrunk back. Not anymore, you're not, he mumbled. What was that? She cracked her knuckles. Which was kind of weird, since she was a ghost and all. Nothing, he squeaked. I think you guys have been hanging around Kakashi-sensei too much, I commented. Also in the stands were Kurara and Yashimaru. They'd stayed up here, which was why I didn't see them in the tunnel with Gaara. Yeah. Kick his butt, baby. Kurara cheered. Oh, but don't kill him, cause that would be bad. Below, on the battleground, Sasuke had been struggling to get his hand out of Gaara's sand defense, but he'd finally managed to tear himself away, luckily with his arm intact. But something had been grasping it. Yashimaru winced. Gaara, crap, muttered Kurara. What is that? Demanded Gai-sensei. Whatever it was, it retreated back into the sand. On the ground, I saw Sasuke suddenly shudder, staring at the hole in the sand. Then the defense began to crack and collapse, revealing Gaara standing there, panting and clutching his bleeding shoulder. But then, for some reason, a bunch of pure white feathers obscured my vision, and my eyes started to close. Naruto. I heard Madara snap. It's a Jinjutsu. Ooh. Is that why I'm so sleepy? Quickly, make the sign for child. Oh, there he goes, Obito observed. Silly Obito, not he, MSH. Blackness. I was suddenly pulled to wakefulness. I lifted my head from the ground, blinking blearily at a head full of pink hair. Sakura. Wah. I'll explain later, she hissed, grabbing onto me. For now, stay down. I was thoroughly confused when she then crawled over to a seemingly unconscious Shikamaru. I say seemingly because after a moment of surprised staring, her eyes narrowed and she muttered, Shikamaru, you from the get-go. It was then that I noticed that for some reason, there was a small dog there with a hit-eye tied over his head. Shikamaru suddenly jolted up when the pug trotted over and bit his ankle, yelping, Yo. You knew how to reverse Shinjutsu, too. Sakura angrily jabbed her finger at him. Why were you pretending to be asleep? He grunted. I didn't want to get dragged into it. He picked up the little dog and scowled at it, tugging at its cheek. No thanks, I don't care about Sasuke. He yelped again when the dog bit his hand. I didn't blame it. I would have too. Amused, I muttered, what the heck is Naruto? Madara barked over Hashirama and Sakura's cry of, behind you. Suddenly, a blur went past me and something was slammed into a wall. Startled, I whirled around, just as Gai-sensei threw an unknown ninja through the wall, creating a large hole to the outside. Gai-sensei. Sakura gasped. Then, suddenly, Kakashi-sensei was there. Okay, here's your mission. He commanded, once you've heard it, head out through that hole. We stared at him as he continued, chase after Sasuke, converge on him, and stop him. And then watch and wait somewhere safe until you receive your new orders. I gaped. Wait, what? What was that about Sasuke? No time. Obito snapped, just as Sakura said, I'll explain on the way. Sakura grabbed onto me. Let's go. She leaped through the hole. I may have let out a rather undignified squeak when she did so. But hey, nobody can be as graceful and regal as I am all the time. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. My ghost was gone. Hashirama. He'd just suddenly disappeared, leaving Madara and I alarmed. There was nothing I could do about that, though. I was busy leaping through the forest with Shikamaru, Sakura, and a little dog named Pakin. Let's go, I'd said. Madara had looked at me, and I'd looked back. You probably can't do anything here anyway. Go. Find Hashirama. Madara hesitated for a moment, then, gritting his teeth, he left. Now, I grimaced. Sakura had just informed me on what was going on. That darn duck. What, he couldn't have grabbed us before he went. She shrugged. You know Sasuke. Shikamaru scowled at Sakura, ignoring me. So? How come you got me involved? This is such a pain. It was Kakashi-sensei's command, she snapped back. Now shut up and run. Wow. She'd really toughened up from when I'd first met her. In front of us, Pakin paused, sniffing, before springing forward. This way. We followed. Hashirama's POV. One moment Madara and I were with Naruto, the next moment there was darkness. I was in a box. No, I was in a coffin. Then the lid fell, and I opened my eyes, slowly straightening my slumped shoulders. I was on the roof of a building, and before me was my brother and I's successor. My brother was beside me, and he spoke up first. Sarutobi, I managed a small grin, the most I could do, as my face felt oddly stiff. I had the feeling expressions would not come easily. It has been a while since you've seen us, though not that long since we've seen you, eh? Sarutobi's face was grave. I never imagined that when I saw you two again, it would be under such circumstances. I am so sorry, he inhaled. Please prepare yourselves, first Hokage. Second Hokage. I laughed jovially, or as jovially as I could. So formal, Hiruzen. Come now, we're only your teachers. And thus deserving of the respect he shows us, Tobirama interjected. Be quiet now, brother. I sulked as he looked around, spotting Orochimaru behind us. Ah, reanimation, of course, summoned by a stripling using a forbidden jutsu. Impressive, he drawled. You know, brother, it does not sound like a compliment when you say it like that, I said. He gave me such a look. I know, now pipe down. My sulk turned into all-out depression. He ignored it. Enough with the old folks' small talk, entertaining though it might be, Orochimaru said. Why don't we get stated? I couldn't move. I was frozen in place, both Tobirama and I, and we would be used. War so many years, and yet, there's still so much war one wished for Madara. Where was he? Behind me, Hiruzen's former student laughed. You know you like it. My expression changed imperceptibly as Sarutobi growled something back at the snake Sannin. My brother noticed. Hashirama, get your mind out of the gutter. That was not a dirty joke. God, you've been spending too much time around the Uchiha and that Naruto child. Madara does not make dirty jokes, I protested. He doesn't even appreciate them. No, this is all Naruto's doing. Do not say it as if you are proud of that fact. Well, you certainly don't appreciate them, either. I huffed, crossing my arms over my chest. You're also fudging stoic. Fudging? He repeated. Fudging. Hashirama, this is not the way a Hokage should speak. I sighed, shaking my head. You were so cute as a child, Tobirama, so earnest and innocent, though still demanding, even then. It was so adorable when you commanded me to give you affection, I said wistfully. I looked at him regretfully. And then you turned 5. Tobirama scoffed. We were shinobi, in the middle of a war. We were children. No, we were ninja. I gave him a sad look. He returned it, except without the sadness. His face might as well have been made from granite. I changed the subject. You know, Naruto says that he suspects you had early onset stoicism. Naruto is impertinent. Enough of this talk, Orochimaru interrupted our conversation. Shall we begin? He raised the 2 kunai that had spell notes attached to their ends and stabbed them into our heads. I could hear the grin in his voice as he pulled back his hands, saying, even as my personality faded, but first, I need you restored to your original forms. Our corroded, decayed bodies started sizzling, emitting steam as they regenerated. I stared blankly ahead, not reacting. They look more and more like their old selves, Sarutobi observed. We may have looked the same, but our eyes were empty. Orochimaru chuckled. Perfect, Naruto Shinchin. We were being chased by 2 squads of enemy ninja. That meant 8, or rather, 9, shinobi. That was not good. An ambush was suggested by Sakura and I, but we were told that it wouldn't work. Shikamaru gave a long explanation on that, which I almost immediately forgot. The gist was, it wasn't an option. So Shikamaru proposed one of us stay behind and delay them by making it look like we were lying in wait. A decoy. But that person, he concluded, would most likely die. I was about to volunteer, but he interrupted, saying he was the only choice. Because the only one who could pull it off and even possibly survive was him, as he had the shadow possession technique and it was fundamentally a detainment jutsu. Shikamaru. I was proud to have him in my harem, no matter how humorous I found it at the time. Anyway, at first, it seemed as if the enemy ninja were still gaining on us, but then they stopped. I knew it was Shika's doing, and I grinned widely before I once again got serious and continued to pursue Sasuke and Gaara with a brief thought on where Hashirama was and what he was doing. Hashirama, Sarutobi had called his summoning, Monkey King Enma, and he fought with him, along with 2 shadow doppelgangers. Then he had all 3 make various fairly alarming signs, and with my personality pushed down low, I used a Jinjutsu, Kakuanjo no Jutsu. The art of infinite darkness. Unable to see, he got hurt. Even in the total blackness, though, he still found us. He grabbed onto me, and even after I dealt him several blows, he did not let go. I jerked as I felt something jab into me, and my Jinjutsu unraveled. I was back. I blinked at Sarutobi, who was still holding onto me, blood dripping